We are going to have some fun today talking about 2014 and the seismic shift in the world that happened. So buckle up. I got my Sampel here. Everybody should have some Sampel. I've got my Muppet cup. You should consider buying a Muppet cup at my store on Navigating Patterns or at the markofwisdom.org website. I've got some Table Rock tea, Westminster again from the Table Rock Tea Company. Oh, it smells gorgeous. Let it steep for a little bit longer. And I got some Jordan almonds, my favorite. Gonna munch on some of them. Already munched on a few of them. Of course, can't resist. Too delicious. Yeah, so I've been waiting to do this one for a while, actually. Had this little list of sort of seminal changing events from 2014 that I wanted to go into. So I hope everyone had a good week. I hope everyone's sort of strapped in for this. And the approach here uh, is going to be basically I'm going to read off a bunch of events from 2014. And it's your job to some extent to find the patterns, to find the links. And then at the end, I'm going to go into sort of the related thesis around what happened as the result of the split of 2014. If you want the glitch in the matrix, because I think if there is a glitch in the matrix, it is the year 2014. And that hopefully will become abundantly clear to you by the end of this video, or at least the end of my monologue. And then hopefully, later you can jump in, ask questions, whatever. I will give a few things. So first, I was doing all this research, and then I was like, wait a minute, I have AI. AI is great for research. It's just great. You can ask really cool questions, and it'll get you some nice data. So I was able to use Claude AI, Anthropic's AI, which I did sign up for, to get some good data for this video. I also now have a much older but cooler AI card. So my little personal AI project is going to move forward too. It's been a lot of fun, but I got to do some training, and I can't do that on my crappy 4 gig video card. So let's dive into 2014. And one of the things I want to consider, and a lot of this is influenced by some recent events. We have the return of Sargon of Akkad, right? Carl Benjamin is back in his Sargon of Akkad suit, if you will, um, which is birthed out of 2014 at the very least, and talking about Gamergate 2.0. And he did a video on TradWise, which has nothing to do with TradWise, which led me down the Lawrence Southern path, which I had really paid any attention to at all, and into some very interesting conclusions that just happen to weirdly segue right into the topic at hand, even though she is post 2014. So, sort of the subtitle of this video is 2014, perhaps the year LARPing begins. So, what happens in 2014? Well, sort of interestingly, in Ukraine, uh, there's this movement to overthrow the current president. It's a very weird situation because he's pro Russian and he stops sort of cooperating or stops forward progress with cooperating with the EU. Makes sense, right? Russia's using Ukraine to a large extent to be a buffer from Western corruption. Now, in 2014, this may not have seemed so obvious. It was more obvious to some of us than others, but now it's completely obvious, right? Like this, we've got drag queen story hour. Like Russia doesn't want that. Okay, uh, we, we shouldn't want that either, but it's here. So them protecting themselves from us is probably a really smart move. And stops that progress. Government falls. The you know this idea sort of getting closer to the West through the EU deteriorated the relationship with Russia, right? And the population didn't want closer ties to the EU and NATO. They didn't after that either. And then, of course, later on that, not too much later on after they ousted this guy, oddly, Crimea happens, right? Which is Russia's annexation. And look, you can say what you want. That was the start of the Ukraine war. It's been going on for 10 years. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, if that's not clear to you, then fair enough, but it should be now. Right? That's the start of the war, is Crimea. So they overthrow their government, they have a war. There's a bunch of other stuff going on around money laundering and influence peddling and information peddling through the CIA, then the KGB, then the CIA, then the KGB, and covering up of all kinds of crimes in Ukraine being done by Russian oligarchs and, oddly, US officials and a bunch of European Union folks that are just doing bad stuff. Silk Road, things like that. A lot of that, the nexus is actually Ukraine. And when it's not the nexus for the activity, that's where the money gets laundered. There's a lot going on in Ukraine. This is not a war over sovereignty for an alleged country that never existed and never will have existed. It's a political football. There's three cultures in that region. So that all starts in 2014. We're 10 years on. It's still going. And, there's the shooting down of Malaysia Airlines 17, shot down by apparently Russian-backed separatists in the Ukraine, in Donetsk. Right? That's in July. That's like after the Crimea thing started. And that's all significant. It's still happening. It hasn't resolved. That was 2014. We're in 2024. And then we've got Gamergate, which is the start of the woke movement and the rise of Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin. Good and bad, good and bad. And he warned us, if not in 2014, by 2015, he warned us on his channel. You can go look at the Gamergate playlist. You should, if you're not familiar. You should. If you haven't watched it in a while, watch it again. All his predictions came true. Every single thing he said happened exactly the way he said it. Exactly. And he, unlike almost everybody else, actually built something that will probably outlast him, but is at least changing the world in a significant way. Right? He lifted up his audience and dragged his audience along with him. For better or for worse. And I've got my criticisms of Carl Benjamin, although little idol worship there. I really like what he did. I was there. I got a bunch of t-shirts from back then. I didn't catch him on 2014. I think I caught him 2015, but whatever. It's that time frame. Belgium becomes the first country to legalize euthanasia. So euthanasia gets legalized. Weird, China has a knife attack in Kunming. 31 people killed by 8 attackers with knives, 137 people injured, right? They were Uyghur separatists. Do the Uyghurs sound familiar, anybody? And thus began the story of the Uyghurs in the news. The response is disproportionate. But it's not like China's being mean to them for no reason. Boy, doesn't that complicate your life? That really sucks. The rise of ISIS happens in 2014. The Islamic State declares a caliphate. And, 40,000 people joined from 100 countries. Just not very impressive. But it's the start of something, right? Or the attempted start of something. What is going on? Why are all these things starting or trying to be started in 2014? Ebola breaks out, right? 6 countries involved, lasted about 2 years. Robin Williams commits suicide. Very sad. I remember that very well. Very sad. Super sad. Emma Watson from Harry Potter. She does her gender inequality speech. She makes it a human rights issue, which I guess means women weren't human before this or something. I don't even understand this. It doesn't make any sense. And she's stating both genders benefit from equality. And of course, the opposite is true. You benefit from specialization. That's the beginning of woke gender ideology. Weird, more woke stuff happening in 2014 before it's called woke. Domestic violence is addressed in the NFL, the National Football League in the United States, and they're forced to start doing things after repeatedly defending the bad behavior of high profile players in their sport. And also in 2014 is the Bill Cosby rape allegations. They were all outside of the statute of limitations. And he was unfairly jailed. And this was later proven by the state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. And he lost his entire career. Talk about cancel culture. He was worth $400 million in 2013. $400 million. He had numerous projects scheduled. The guy had been doing great work for years, and they just freaking took him out. I don't know that that's the beginning of cancel culture, but that's a hell of a cancel. Ellen Page, because it's not called Elliot Page yet, comes out as gay. Right? It was another 6 years before Elliot Page came out as trans, right? But Ellen Page comes out as gay at the Human Rights Campaign. Oh, it's the Human Rights Campaign. A lot of rich kid inheritance. That's what it is. Rich kid inheritance. And a lot of tech bros cash. That's what that is. This time to thrive thing. So you see these issues around gender, race, Me Too, cancel culture are all tied to the global humanist movement. Weird. No, really, that happened. We know this now. This happened in 2014, and you likely didn't notice. I didn't notice. There's this viral video that gets released as one of the top 10 viral videos of the year. 10 hours in New York City as a woman. You know, where she gets catcalled and big dust up over that. Weird. It's almost like there's a movement afoot. Females can become bishops in the Church of England. This was voted in. Voted in the church? Weird. Precisely, by the way, what Plato warns about in Book 8 of the Republic. I have a video coming on that, by the way. See Navigating Patterns. It'll be out soon. Getting edited now. I hope. I hope it's getting edited now. I was told it was getting edited now, damn it. The tide of same-sex marriage in the United States is almost fully changed by 2014, with the last 18 of the 35 states, plus the District of Columbia, enacting legislation making it legal, and only one state where it doesn't become law until 2015, but they enacted it in 2014, and Guam, where they did it all in 2015. And this is the full erasure of femininity as such, and culminates in the 2015 Same-Sex Marriage Act, which decides it for the remaining states, which is completely, utterly, constitutionally, morally, and ethically wrong. 35 states want to have gay marriage and the others don't. Why is that a problem? That's how the United States is supposed to work. And this all began in the 70s as part of the Civil Rights Act. And all the states pass something, and then the federal government sort of cements it, because, odd, because that shouldn't happen, by a Supreme Court ruling. What the hell is that? That's interesting indeed. That's what that is. Sort of the beginning of the end of state self-determination. Another weird thing happens. Malaysia flight 370 vanishes. And 10 years on, we kind of have a better idea. Failure of the tech, the radar's not there, strangeness with the pilot, bad marriage, probably a meaning crisis, probably a murder suicide. The government probably knew this, entertained it from the beginning, according to eyewitnesses. They were aware this was an issue. That wasn't the first, second, or third pilot murder suicide. There've been something like 14 or 15. Hong Kong protests for democracy, the umbrella revolution. Big deal. A lot of craziness over that, if you ever look into that. And then Modi gets voted in India by landslide victory, right? First time since 1984 for a single party to gain so much control in a single election in India. Very strange. It's just really weird. All these weird changes are happening. And also, as part of 2014, the last half, 6 months, oil price crash. 6 months, a 50% decline in the price of oil. Now, if you read about this and you pay attention, which is hard, I agree, what you'll notice is the narrative is all screwed up and contradictory. It makes no sense at all. They're like, oh, yeah, now people started paying attention to the price of energy. Energy got 50% cheaper. Why would anybody care? You care less when prices go down, not more. Little weird. Don't know what's going on there, actually. Can't figure it out. Lots of sort of excuses for why the energy price went down. And, it's another one of those cases where any one of these things were different, the energy price wouldn't have dropped so much. What's going on? I don't know. The Boko Haram kidnappings. They kidnapped schoolgirls in Nigeria, 276 between the ages of 16 and 18. 100 are still missing. Starts a global campaign. Now, remember, this is in light of Emma Watson complaining about being, made fun of or denied opportunity in Hollywood. Meanwhile, these little girls are getting kidnapped by these thugs. I don't know. I don't know what's more important there. Relevance realization, anyone? The Israel-Gaza conflict. Oh, it was an Israel-Gaza conflict 10 years ago. Operation Protective Edge, 7 weeks long. 3 teenagers were kidnapped and murdered by, guess who? Palestine. And then rockets get fired out of Gaza. Israel attacks Hamas and some military infrastructure and some rocket sites. 67 Israeli soldiers killed, 6 Gaza civilians. 6. 10 years later, we're worried about disproportional. Despite the history, really? What's going on? What's going on? Something's going on. Not what they're saying is going on, that's for sure. Widespread destruction. Both sides claim victory upon the ceasefire. Sound familiar? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? It's very familiar. This is the pattern in the Middle East. Everybody always claims victory with the ceasefire, especially the bad guys. It's really weird. Why do they do that? Because they didn't get wiped out. Maybe that tells you something. Maybe it should. The ice bucket challenge. You might say, Mark, the ice bucket challenge, you dump a bucket of water on your head. What the hell are you doing? It's a viral online copy me video, but it's the first big challenge for a charitable cause. So we've taken viral video power and put it towards raising money, and they raised like $115 million as opposed to, I think it was 60 million before or something. So they raised like double the money. And something else very interesting happens, which I didn't know anything about till I think it was last year. I watched True Detective, which helped popularize TV anthologies. The dark crime drama returns, right? Very memorable dialogue, philosophical musings, and nihilism in the first season of True Detective. Widely quoted. Very dark. That first, I didn't watch any more of it just because the rest of it's actually not well written. But there was a reason why the person who asked me to watch it wanted me to watch that particular first opening episode. And boy, I'm glad I did because it really plays into this video. Who knew? Months later. There's an asteroid that comes within 25,000 miles. It's asteroid 2014 RC2. 25,000 miles from Earth. That's it. Near miss. And interestingly, World Trade One opens, which at the time is the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere to replace the World Trade Center towers. Right? Lots of symbolism in that building too. It's very interesting. And same year, 2014, France proposes a ban on diesel cars that they want to phase in. Right? And one of the ways they do this is, higher taxes for fuel, right? And that likely impacted the Yellow Vest protest. This is kind of speculation on my part, but seems pretty likely they kind of promised it and they kind of implemented that later. It was proposed in 2014, hugely unpopular when it was proposed in France, hugely, because a lot of poor people in France who are, just sneaking by and they want to do it with diesel cars, like a huge part of their economy. Very strange. So did that lead to Yellow Vest protests? Seems like it might have. Certainly was one of the factors. The CIA torture report came out. A lot of admissions of things that people might call bad with, no return, which I would say is categorically untrue. But I want to get into that. I'm not here for that. Report came out. A lot of things changed. The Michael Brown case, Ferguson. Ferguson was at Missouri, I think. It was largely just a fabrication about a racial disparity. A lot of lies. People were like, "Oh, he wasn't doing anything illegal." In every state I've ever been in, it is actually illegal to walk down the middle of the road, down the double yellow line. It is actually illegal in every state I've ever been to. I don't know what these people are talking about. He wasn't doing anything illegal. No, he was. And he had just gotten done burglarizing a shop. Well, the cop didn't know about that, but he knew he was walking down the middle of the road illegally because he saw him and simply asked him not to do it anymore. And because he was defiant and feeling all mighty and high on life, he said, "Oh, screw that. I don't care. I'm going to ignore the cop and to hell with that." Right? They got into an altercation. He went for the cop's gun. Cop shot him. That's too bad. Also, huge person, like just physically large. They kept using a picture of his that was years old. Said, "Oh, look at this sweet little boy." Right? Fabrication. You were lied to. The president, Obama, mentions the case multiple times. The president talking about a local issue, right? Just inciting racial incidents. Again, he had done this the year before with Trayvon Martin. His son could have been my son, could have been me when I was younger. Was it just a year before? The Justice Department ends up going into Ferguson, declares systemic racism, but recommends no changes. Doesn't charge the officer in the shooting. And the thing you probably didn't realize is we have a black president in the United States at this time, and we have a black head of the Department of Justice and a black state's attorney general. If something really happened, why didn't they take care of it? What's going on? That's a little weird. That's a little weird. Yeah. CW. I have a video on the beer summit That's my Fall of the Fourth Estate video. You should watch that. I go over that whole thing. That's a related incident, but it's not the same. That might have been 2014 too. I don't remember actually. I should look that up. The Eric Garner case. Another case, similar case, right? Eric Garner's 43 though. He's not a kid, but he is black. And he says, "I can't breathe." That's long before George Floyd. Nice pattern, huh? Right? It becomes a rallying cry for BLM, which was formed the year before around Trayvon Martin, who again could have been Obama's kid after all. It could have been him when he was younger. But again, even the Department of Justice won't bring charges against the officer. Isn't that strange? Does this strike anybody as a little weird? The federal government makes a big deal out of this and then gets involved and doesn't do anything. I talked about PSYOPs. That's a PSYOP. Like, if nothing else, you've been tricked. And they're tying together all these issues, right? Because it's the start of these race policing system reforms, change the justice system movement, which is a carry on from the civil rights stuff. Right? But it's been all corrupted. All corrupted. It's all money. Right? It's all freaking ridiculous. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, right? And we have the Civil Rights March on DC. Justice for all, based on the lies on these shootings of Black people in the United States, organized by Al Sharpton and the labor unions. Why the labor unions? What is going on? These are strange bedfellows, folks. This is really weird. But let me get to the heart of the matter, because there is a heart of the matter. The bigger story in 2014 is the split. CNN does some cutbacks. Viewership declines 4% in a year. NPR podcast downloads up 41%. Digital ad revenue goes up 18%. Cable news genre is down 16%. MSNBC loses 20% viewership. CNN loses 8% viewership. Fox is up. They're the only one, of course. Less than 5 million people in the United States are watching the news. The country's got 300 million plus people in it at this point. 5 million are watching the news. That's it. 5 million is, a pretty good YouTube video, but there's lots of them. Isn't that interesting? And now, again, you want single facts that you can add no more facts to and change, right? More information won't help. Fox comes into the news industry and absolutely destroys everybody's viewership numbers, while the entire viewership for news, 24/7 news, is collapsing. That tells you a lot when you have an outlier in a system like that. It tells you a lot. Think very carefully about what that means. Now, Fox is not and never has been right-leaning. I know you think so. You're wrong. Conservatives read their news. They do not watch TV. Sorry. It's always been that way. Always will be that way. Always will have been that way. Just what it is. According to Pew, the earnings gap was never greater between people with bachelor's degrees and non-bachelor's degrees. And according to them, the country is more ideologically divided than in the past. And 72% say religion is losing its influence. So weird. This is according to Pew. I didn't make this up. I looked it up. Median wealth gap by race increases. What a weird thing to report. Americans are more attached to cell phones and the internet access. 61% say the internet is essential to them. Oh, I'm sorry. 61% are using it. 39% say that they need internet access. TV ownership is down. Landline telephones are down. People feel they have lost control over their personal data. Revenue decline for news media continues. Newspapers are in decline. The lowest media trust was reached in 2016. How interesting. So there is a collapse of the trust system. The news media, mainstream media trust system already happened 10 years ago. You just didn't notice. It happened 10 years ago. This, by the way, was not a good thing. It was not a good thing. Pew 2012. The transformation of the nation's news landscape has already taken a heavy toll on print news sources, particularly print newspapers. But there are now signs that television news is increasingly vulnerable as it may lose its hold on the next generation of news consumers. This happens 2 years later in 2014. So Pew saw it coming. Interesting. It's not like no one knew. Pew is not like some backwater thing that no one knew about. They either weren't paying attention or they didn't know what to do about it. More likely, they didn't know what to do about it. So everything sort of drops. The percentage of people watching the news is 0.8%, and 2 years before it was 1.1%, right? And meantime, online is 38%. So our new generation is online and getting their news online. And the older generation, which is constantly shrinking, it's a shrinking piece of the pie, is not, partially online and not watching the news. Sorry. It happened in 2014. The news media hasn't had a lot of power in a very long time. That was not a good thing. The thing that you thought you wanted to have happen already happened and caused the problems you don't like now. 2014. Now, the numbers matter, but they don't tell the whole story, right? Most people don't point to the most influence or power, if you like useless definitions. And democracy doesn't solve this, right? But with lag, you can easily explain Trump. Easily, whatever you think of him, right? And these numbers actually do that job. They show you the shift from where people are getting information from and what they think about the information sources, right? Because you don't watch when you don't trust. You don't answer a poll. You just stop watching. For most people, they speak with their actions. They don't speak by telling you things. People lie a lot. They lie to themselves. Like, they're not lying to you. They're telling themselves a story. They want you to believe it too, so that they'll believe it better. They already left. Everybody left the news media in 2014. It was already done. It just got worse after that. There was a bump with Trump, actually. But if you count the lag, Trump's perfectly explainable. Interestingly, in 2013, and we're getting into the meat here, Vice, that news network, this is a weekly documentary in 2013, but expands in 2014. And they hire Tim Pool. The interesting thing about this is not that, Tim Pool was in Occupy Wall Street. He did one, I think he was the first one to use drones in media coverage. Like, very smart guy, very creative, sacrifices a lot, right? Joins Vice, is sleeping on couches for a year, saving every last penny he can so that he has financial freedom. Is that what you did? Yeah, you didn't do that. That's why you don't have what you want, because you don't sacrifice things you don't need. But this sets the stage for Tim to become disillusioned. And that's his rise within this alternative media platform online. This is the beginning, him joining Vice in 2014. Newsmax gets founded. And that's the rise of this so-called conservative non-print media. So-called. We'll get to that. Milo Yiannopoulos, Milo, joins Breitbart. Good old Milo. Let me tell you a few things about Milo. Was never, could never have been a conservative. Sorry, just straight out of Compton, never going to happen. Was not a thing. Came off that way, and I'll explain this as we go on here. He joins Breitbart. Breitbart expands their operations. They have 3% of respondents getting their news from them, according to Pew Research. That's a lot for a brand new news organization, which is weird. Why would a brand new news organization automatically garner that much attention? Something's going on in 2014. Milo exemplifies what's going on to some extent. And into this milieu, in the wake of this change, is born. So not in 2014, but in the wake of 2014 and the collapse of the old news media, is Lauren Southern. Right? And Rebel Media. She helps birth Rebel Media. That's her baby to a large extent. Rebel Media comes out of this guy who leaves TV news to do online news. Did you notice the name? Rebel Media. Let me explain something very important for people to understand. If you use the word rebel, you cannot be conservative at all, ever, in any way, shape, or form. It's not going to happen. Either you're using the language in a completely inappropriate way that does not communicate, or you're lying. In this case, they're lying. I know they're lying. I can prove that they're lying. It's not hard. Do you want to see fantasy projection? Do you want to see what it looks like to LARP in the real world? Power play? People trying to play for power without it working for them at all, at least not for very long or much at all, right? Do you want to see hierarchy in action? Those people in the back are holding up the people that you see in the world. And when they are gone, the people that you see go away too. Why? Because what they're doing doesn't work. It doesn't work, folks. You think it works. You think you can play like a political game and be in politics. But it doesn't work. And here is the proof. The video that I watched, it is 3 hours. I'm not necessarily recommending that you watch it. If you want to see LARPing, if you want to see weird stuff, watch this video. It's amazing. I just finished it today. I was so enthralled by it. I'm like, no, I'm going to include this because this is right, for whatever reason, this is right up the alley of the split in 2014, of the changeover from where authoritative news comes from. Lauren Southern is telling herself a fantasy that she wanted to be a political person, that she was entering politics. Okay. The problem with this is that Lauren Southern is a freaking journalist and there was never anything else. And you could say about Mark, she did documentaries on political issues. Everything seems to be a political issue somehow. How is this possible that every single thing is political? Because it's not. You're misusing the word. And so is everybody else, or almost everybody else. Everything in the universe is not political. That's not a helpful way to think about things. But more importantly, this is the story of the hijacking of new media by greedy charlatans who were obvious. Milo was never going to be a good actor ever. It was never going to happen. Tommy Robinson was not going to be the upstanding guy you wanted to represent you as a conservative, ever. He's a cokehead. Period. And a drunk who screws people and uses them. And they go along with it to some extent because they get something out of it. Even worse. The story's horrific. Absolutely horrific. And these people think their information is going to change the world. This is age of gnosis. I tweet about this all the time, right? Knowledge is propositions, and that is the highest value. Propositional knowledge. Propositions as such, super high value. So they think that's going to change the world. That makes them political actors because they're going to change the world. But in fact, it's all competing numbers, which, might be true to some extent. They're just actually kind of competing on numbers. But what kind of numbers? You listen to Lauren Southern and you hear her weaponized idealism. She wanted to be a voice for people, raising up the downtrodden. She says she's in politics. How? She's not being voted for. She's not changing people's votes to have them vote for somebody else. She isn't starting a political action committee. She isn't raising money for politicians, right? Issues aren't political beyond the fact that all things at a societal level are political in a sense. But again, that's useless. I used to have a great saying that politics is more than two people, because that's how people were using it. I'm like, politics cannot be more than two people, right? A lot of times they were describing diplomacy or they were describing government. And government is made up of two types of actors, roughly speaking, those that are elected and those that are not. Pretty simple, actually. That's politics. Elections, unelected government officials. That's politics. That's fine. It only works in the government, though. It doesn't, I'm not a political animal for, stating gays shouldn't get married. That's not a political statement, right? That's a personal opinion. And you can condemn me for that if you want. I really don't care. Your opinion means nothing to me. Sorry, just doesn't. Not on that issue, anyway. It's a worthless term when we use it this way. So we shouldn't use it that way. This woman is LARPing. She believes she was political. She wasn't involved in government in any way, shape, or form. She was involved in changing government policy. None of that. She's trying to act as a voice for the people. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. She's pointing out what the media is not telling you. Honey, the media is not telling you so many things. We ain't got time. I went over this again. I think it was either today or yesterday. Oh, no one's talking about the Uyghurs in the camps in China right now because we're too busy talking about Ukraine. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're not talking about Ukraine anymore. We're talking about Israel and Gaza now. What about the continent of Africa, where there's all kinds of bad things going on, and every once in a while it blips up on the radar? You think any of that changed? How about the freaking slave market in Libya? Could we talk about that? That seems way more important somehow, because it seems like something you could fix pretty easily, actually. We fixed it before. Weird. I should have looked up when that whole thing happened. I bet it was right around 2014. And Lauren Southern telling this horrific story of these just bad actors who are clearly not conservatives, including her. Not a conservative. Nothing conservative about the woman whatsoever. Very moderate. Not a conservative. I understand her story. People she knew were being attacked personally. And she's upset. And she wanted to do something about it because she felt like the people she loved were under attack. Fair. But she wasn't part of a movement. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. You want people part of a movement? That's Ben Shapiro, Tim Pool, Carl Benjamin. They did something. Lauren Southern was a flash in the pan. Not that it didn't have an effect, but it wasn't her effect. She left. Now she's back. After making more bad life choices. Fantastic. No politicians, no people trying to vote, no one getting into office, no one doing anything except rebelling against the structure or the power. That's not a movement. You're not a political actor. You're not in politics. All that really happened there was journalism. People were breaking into a whole new industry that had been opened up from this so-called deregulation of the news industry. Oddly, deregulation always seems like the opposite. It seems like they put regulations on, not take them off. And the cable news industry is created, which then breaks down because production becomes almost free. Hello? This doesn't cost me much. In parts, $100. Oh no, 120 with the lights, but $100 to start. I already had the laptop. I already had the internet connection. I would have them anyway. So really, that's not part of the cost of my broadcasting. What did CNN think? They were going to be able to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on camera equipment forever? Duh. They weren't doing any work. I watched them. They weren't doing any work. That was Tim Pool's complaint. Listen to Tim Pool in the early days. Timcast before it got big. He was still outpolling. He was outpolling CNN. Yeah, that was pre-fake news virus scam. He was outpulling CNN in that time slot for a better demographic, even. In the meantime, all these people are on YouTube videos or documentaries or whatever, selling their personality. That's what they're selling. They're selling their personal experience. They're trying to be a real person, not just some detached journalist. They really care about what they're talking about. They want you to care too. They want to bring you into that. I'm not demonizing that, but trade-offs. I have a video on trade-offs. They're upset at being real and having people get intimacy confused and them wanting to be closer to these people. Now, I'm not saying that internet stalking is cool. No stalking is cool. It's not good for you and it's not good for them. Right? No matter which side you're on, doesn't matter. But I am saying you put yourself out there in a new way on a new medium that we actually know nothing about. We know nothing about the internet. Nothing. Just haven't had enough generations on it. 2014 is the beginning of people really getting on the internet. Here's a reason why you want to have a professional journalist and not some ideologically possessed idealist like Lauren Southern going, I care because my friends are being attacked, my family's being attacked, people I know are being attacked. And the media is doing nothing about it. I mean, fair. But the cost is, yeah, people are trying to get more intimacy with you than you're comfortable with. And maybe you're young and you make a few mistakes and people find out that you've made a few mistakes and then they think, well, seems like that's on the table. And then, of course, at some point, for some people, it's not on the table. And at some point, you don't want it to be on the table anymore. And you take it off the table. But now you get a rep. You're already known. And if you're selling your life and your experience and your emotional involvement in something on a screen, people can get confused really easily. Maybe they know you. Maybe if you knew them better, you'd want to be with them because they know you. They know they can be better to you than having nothing because you have nothing on the screen. There's the intimacy crisis. No wonder why we have an intimacy crisis. Got way too much media in general, way too much ultra personal media, not personalized, that too, ultra personal media. Then you wonder why people are concerned about your health or trying to offer you free hotel rooms and flights to places. She tells this story. It's a remarkable video in many ways. The words that she's using are just amazing. LARPing, totally delusional. All of them were. We're part of a conservative movement. None of you were conservative and you didn't move anything. Maybe you made some money out of it. I'm not saying it was a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, your characterization of what happened did not happen. It's a delusion. There's your LARPing. Maybe 2014 is the beginning of the LARPing. And before that, when we had a system that we could trust, even if it was flawed, because it just turns out that all systems are made of people and all people suck and they're flawed, at least it was easier to filter things out. Maybe you don't send a 20-year-old girl around the world with strangers paying for her hotels and flights. And people who contact you and go, "Hey, we're gonna, give you a tour and get you a speaking tour going," and then steal all the money. Would have been nice if that didn't happen. If only somebody were looking out for her. If only she had been in a conservative family where they wouldn't have let that happen. You cannot fight for people you do not know. You cannot fight for causes you do not understand. You cannot fight for things you're not in, like politics or countries you don't live in. You can't do that. It's not possible. You can LARP. You can grab garbage containers, carve them up, and put them on as armor against real armor with riot police and then look like a fool on the internet. You can do that, but you're LARPing. Believing that you are defending an entity that never did anything and never had anything and never moved anything, never changed anything is delusional. Lauren Southern is delusional. These people were delusional. Tim Pool wasn't delusional. He built his company. Carl Benjamin wasn't delusional. He built his company. Ben Shapiro wasn't delusional. He co-founded the company. It should have been obvious. Milo is obviously not a conservative. Like, I don't know why I would have to tell anybody that. Like, what do you think your eyes are lying to you? Like, what's going on? Milo's just like a horrible human being. Like, just flat out awful human. Terrible. They're all narcissists too. All these people part of this movement. I'm glad I knew almost nothing of it. I'm very grateful. The idea of a dissident right. What is that? That's non-existent. You can't be a dissident conservative. It's just a contradiction. I am sorry. It just doesn't exist. Never has, never will. It's contradicted by the words. It's foolishness. It's nutty. It's crazy talk. The dissident right. I was part of the dissident right. No, you weren't. You were a moderate at best and an idealist. I'm not demonizing it, but like casting yourself as a conservative is like, no. And then other people agree. Oh, yeah, that's definitely what the conservatives are like. She ain't no conservative. She never was. That's nuts. And the thing is, you can have your LARPing, and people will use that for political purposes. By people who are actually in politics, for sure. They'll use you. You're just a pawn. Thinking that you could have been something more, thinking you were involved in something bigger than you could have been. And remember, the hierarchy's still there. Lauren Southern says in the video, all these guys, it's the support staff. Support staff goes away, they go away. They're not getting sent. Tony Robinson didn't get censored. He pissed off the two guys that were doing his videos and coming up with all his great ideas, and actually pissed off a woman who was doing the same thing for him. That's why he vanished. Without them, all he had was cocaine, booze, and hookers. Hey, he didn't have anybody to drag him out of that so he could work on something bigger than him. Their video editing was fantastic. Look at her. Look at Lauren Southern stuff. The same guys did a lot of Tommy Robinson stuff, but they organized everything too. Right? They weren't perfect either, right? No one's perfect, as it turns out. It's almost like we live in a fallen world. Don't tell my buddy Bruce. But maybe this is what happens when you try to do something, engage in something bigger than you. Something that you don't have any competence in. Maybe when you're incompetent and you try to LARP your way into politics or moving people politically or fighting for the people or whatever, and you're young and you have no idea what you're doing, maybe you get used. Maybe you fall into a world of narcissists who are all LARPing with small money. So small money operations. People with millions of dollars, maybe $10 million are donating to you. That's nothing. You're not in the top 10% of wealth. What are you doing? It's great that we live in a society where you can LARP and do all kinds of things because lots of people have lots of extra cash. But like at a certain point, what are you doing? You didn't move anything. It wasn't a movement. Come on. Effectively, what happened to these people, Milo included, they jumped into a game foolishly that was already over. The news media was already in decline. And there was a vacuum there for sure, right? But it was already over. The experiment of the so-called deregulated media was a failed enterprise. It didn't work. It's weird. It's always been the weirdest thing of my life. I've been watching this my whole freaking life. These people go, money corrupts, money's bad, money's evil. Then, in the same sentence, we should pay teachers more. Wait, what? That would be the last people you'd want to pay more. Oh no, we got to pay the working class more. If the working class are virtuous because they're poor, why would you pay them more? Are you just admitting that you want them to be corrupt like you are? Because that's what it sounds like to me. It's always sounded that way. I don't know why everybody doesn't scream about this every time they hear it. But it turns out that charging money for news is bad business, which is why it reliably strays into entertainment, where the real money always was. The news media inside the US, not anywhere else, because nowhere else had independent news media for the most part, except for newspapers. The news media was always government controlled. In the US, it was mandated if you wanted to do entertainment of any kind, you had to have a news department at your expense, unreimbursed. Money was not the issue. It was a loss leader. They deregulated the industry. Took a while for the industry to collapse. Took a new technology to kind of flip the tables. A lot of the local outfits actually benefited from this for a short time. I have no idea if they're still benefiting. But all in all, with the new technology, the rise of the internet, everybody adopting cell phones and internet service, at least in the US, bang. Everything turns into entertainment because that's where the real money is. That's why I'm a pirate. Problem for Lauren Southern is, and all these other people, they never really had a fan base of any quality. So when they turn on you, surprise is not appropriate. Welcome to LARPing. That's most of what I wanted to say about that. The real takeaway here is that there was a split, a technological split and a generational split at the same time. And it was around the source of authoritative information. Authoritative information is important because authoritative information is about filtering. You, dear Muppet, cannot take all the information in. You can't even take in a tiny fraction of a percentage. Sorry. The idea that you can filter or even build your own filters for information is so absurd. I can't explain to you. I've told this before. Catherine Brodsky was on Twitter and she's like, just give me the entire Twitter feed. I got news for you about how much data the entire Twitter feed is. I actually knew somebody who had the API key for the pipe from the beginning of Twitter, basically. It's like, oh, I want to do something with all this data. He used to tell me that on a regular basis. I was like, yeah, good luck with that. Like, I mean, I can build the infrastructure to do it. That's not a problem. The problem is, what the hell do you do with the data? Like, my goodness. How do you know what data to look at, what data not to look at? We all knew back in the day there were bots all over Twitter. Sure, Elon's made that problem better, but what do you do with that much? It's an unbelievable amount of data. Again, I can build the infrastructure to process it. That's really easy. I've done that before. Nothing at that scale, to be fair, but like I understand all those principles. Wouldn't be a big deal. We'd have one or two false starts, but we'd get it the third, fourth time for sure. What are you going to do with it? Because you got to filter it. You got to filter it by relevance. That's John Vervaeke's relevance realization. What's relevant? And it's not what's relevant in a vacuum. There's no objective material reality, OMR, as I like to call it. I get videos on all this. Some of it has to be filtered on other pieces of data, right? So if you see something come up 1,000 times in an hour, it's probably a trending thing, right? Like we might call that trending in certain circumstances. You've got to determine all that. You've got to make up all these rules. The news media filters. They do a bad job of it. Yeah, everybody does. Everybody would. Everybody will. Everybody has. Nobody has the option of doing a good job at that. Sorry. What's going on in Africa? Continent of Africa. Tell me. No one's doing a good job. I had a plumber over here a few weeks ago. I didn't have the right tools for what I was trying to do. Shock. Thought I did, but stupidity abounds. He was from South Africa, like within the past year or something. Oh my goodness, what's going on in South Africa? Holy cats. Oh, I don't know if you've seen that that scene from Fast and Furious where they, on the highway and they hijack an armored car. No, that happens in South Africa like every couple of months for real. Like grenades and explosions and the whole 9 yards every few months. I was like, what? And he's like, no, it's but we know who it is. And I'm like, what? That's not better. What's going on over there? That's just one part of Africa. I don't even want to know. There's 100 Boko Haram girls missing. They're, between 26 and 28 now. What's going on? You need that filter. That filter's going to suck. For sure. But you can't let everybody in on the game. You can't let every cokehead who sleeps with hookers. And there's a couple of them in that little milieu there that Lauren Southern was part of. Just do news and filter what they want to filter. Doesn't work. We know this. It's 10 years later. We know this. They made it worse. Sorry, guys. You made it worse. You made it worse. You fed the beast without knowing it. And you thought you were conservative, and you never were. Not that you were leftist, but there's not just two options here, guys. The world is way bigger than two options. Binary frames are always wrong. They're always wrong. All the time. Why are these things messed up? Why can't I? Yeah, there we go. Much better. That's the real takeaway. A lot of strange things happened in 2014. There was a lot of fallout from the change in media, the change in generation that happened with the change in technology at the same time. It all converged. That doesn't happen very often in history. As somebody who studies history a little bit, amateur though I may be, doesn't happen a lot in history. And when it does, it's the fall of the Roman Empire. I'm not saying that's going to be the fall of the American Empire or the fall of the West or anything crazy. I don't see any evidence for that, actually. I'm not saying it's not a danger. I see evidence for the danger of that happening. I just don't think we're as close as some people seem to want to believe, these accelerationists who are just perfectionists, right? They want an answer and they want a certain answer of a certainty level and they want it now. Well, you're crazy. Stop doing that. You're not going to get the answer you want anyway. You're going to get more uncertainty and you just don't realize that because you're a Muppet. I'm a Muppet. We're all Muppets. It's okay. Chillax. 2014. That was the collapse, man. Everything changed. Some good things came out of it. Tim Pool's got his thing. Carl Benjamin's got the Lotus Eaters. We've got the Daily Wire. All of those little media outlets have started to consolidate, right? Most of them are now consolidated. I think the Blaze has the rest of them or something. It's very interesting, right? But we need a single source for the truth. That's what I used to call it in computers. Single source for the truth. It doesn't have to be like one news outlet, right? But if there's 4 groups of people, we need 4 single sources of the truth for those groups at the very least. 2 is a bad number. It's a binary. It's wrong. Nothing in this world is a binary. Sorry, just bad way to think about the world. Always. Lauren Southern was never into politics. So silly. They made a documentary. I'm glad you did. That doesn't make you a politician. It doesn't put you in politics. It certainly doesn't make you conservative. It doesn't matter what the documentary is about. Conservatism is about your behavior in the world. It's not about believing that immigration needs to be done carefully. Like, that's not conservatism. Certainly, embracing new media and trying to manipulate the population is not a conservative move. It's just not. Why are people crazy? What did you notice about 2014? Anything interesting, or was that list? I mean, I think if you think about it long enough, you'll find more and more things like, oh, I mean, the Ukraine war being 10 years old, like, people don't think of it that way, but definitely, there's no question about it. There's been continuous fighting for 10 years in Ukraine. And people don't think about it, but it's been that way. It's been that way. This whole woke stuff all started. BLM, all this stuff. I mean, it all kind of happens in 2014, all at the same time. Very weird. It's very, very strange. And look, if Jesse's watching this, he's probably screaming about, oh, this thing and that thing and this movie and that book. And sure. Sure, whatever. Look, you want to talk about this or something else? You can jump on in on Navigating Patterns here. We can jump you into StreamYard and chat a little. But man, I'm tired. That was a lot. Have a little bit of water, a little bit of tea, some Jordan almonds. Feel free to jump in if it catches your fancy. We'll pin the link to my channel, which is about all I can do. So I don't really see anything I didn't respond to. Yeah, you should look up the BS Summit. What year was that? No, that was way earlier. That was 2009. It was another failed attempt. Failed attempt to gin up the race narrative, start a race war. Ridiculous. So ridiculous. Didn't work when Charles Manson did it either, thank goodness. Could we not have a race war? Wouldn't that be nice? Everyone seems to be trying. I don't know why. This penchant for war that people have, does anybody get it yet? They don't want war. They're trying to get one. I don't know why you keep saying they don't want war. I know they say they don't want war, but also they're occupying things. If you're occupying something, it's because you want war. Just hint, little hint. If you're making up stories about people shooting people for reasons of skin color, you want a war. Like, that's what you want. I know this because it's the only thing you're going to get, and you know that. And 2014 was definitely the year of war. Definitely the year of war. That's when we set up for all the wars, right? Some of them were going on. Like I said, Ukraine actually started in 2014. Gaza-Israeli conflict really sort of, 2014. Went on, Israel's one of those weird, quote, countries where, depending on how you draw the borders, there's missiles fired from Israel into Israel. Ukraine, weird country. Missiles fired from Ukraine into Ukraine. Weird country. Doesn't happen in the United States. Doesn't happen in any of the European countries, I don't think. It's a very weird situation. Just don't understand. Are you sure you got a country? I got questions. I just get questions. I don't understand. Oh, goodness. Yeah, 2014, man. John, how you doing, John? It's good to see you.
Hey, is my connection all right here? I'm doing my hotspot on my phone today, so I'm not sure how that's. Is it working all right?
Spot on.
Cool. I can't see you, maybe that's why, but it's good on my end. I can, whatever. You'll probably pop in a second here. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's been an up and down week, but I'm here. I'm doing the stream. So
you know what? My screen just completely shut off here. I don't know what that's about. It's just probably not very good on the hotspot. I'll be back in just a second here. 1 second.
All right. Lost poor John.
I can still.
Let's see if he comes back. Nothing. No live text questions, huh? Jeez, come on, guys. I'll just sit here and drink tea until John comes back. 2014, man. Yeah, I wish Jesse were here. He'd tell us all the movies that were pertinent to all my points about all the weird events that happened in 2014. Those are just the ones, I didn't do a super deep dive, right? But I will tell you something strange happened, right? Some research in 2014, and I'm looking up various events, and I keep looking at events I wouldn't have thought would be related, and other events come up. And I'm like, well, that's weird that those two events come up in the same text. And like I said, some of my research before I figured out, hey, I have AI. I did, myself. I did manual research. So yeah, Pew is very interesting with their numbers and what they do. Hey, welcome.
How's it going?
Good. How are you? What brings you here?
Well, I don't know. I occasionally catch the streams and I enjoy some of your videos, especially even on your software channel. I'm a student right now in CS related field, so
Oh, you watch my personal channel? Yeah, where I talk
Yeah.
about software and stuff more than anything else.
Well, I do like the things on this channel. This is the one I originally saw. I don't have a ton of. I did find the analysis of 2014 interesting. I was 12, so I don't remember that, but
That's okay. It's good to know how these things work,
it's true.
There's John. John's back.
Hi. Can you hear me all right? This is just my phone mic. Is the sound all right?
Sounds good.
Cool. All right.
And we got Porter here for the first time, so it's nice to have him.
Hi. Where
How's it
are you
going?
from?
I'm from Idaho.
Really? Oh,
Nope.
cool. I'm from Boise. I was born in Boise.
Oh, that's great.
Where do you live?
In IF.
IF? Where's that?
It's on the east. It's southeast Idaho.
Okay, cool. I've never been there.
Yeah.
I love Idaho. It's if I was to choose one place to live and one place like physically that I consider home, it's Idaho. It's definitely the most beautiful place I've lived.
No, it's a great state. I don't love big cities.
It's pretty.
No,
It's
I
pretty.
don't love cities either. I lived in the suburbs and I lived there a lot. We when I moved from there the first time, because actually I lived there 3 different times. We ended up moving because they were going to expand the road and it was going to be like right against the house. And there was also like a prison nearby that they were building. It was just gonna be a whole thing. So it was just like, but yeah. My dad worked at Micron, and so it's really expensive to live there. But everyone who who can afford it lives at Micron essentially. So it's really nice. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah. But yeah, I have a lot of good friends there. We go camping all the time. Actually, one of my friends had a baby a few years ago, and because like all my family's spread all over the place, every time I take a vacation, it's always to see them, and which is right. But like, I really need to see my friend Blake, and say hi to that baby. So, but, yeah, excited.
No, that's good. I've been to Idaho. I was in Nampa and Boise.
Oh, Nampa. Yeah, I lived. So I have like.
I was at Micron.
Really? You worked at Micron?
Yeah. I didn't work there. I did a contract there for I think like a week or something. Yeah, there was a company they were doing business with that I was contracting for, and they flew me out to Micron to fix some problems.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I like still don't understand completely what my dad does. He's explained it to me a lot, and then I know some people who got a job there, and they say that it's pretty common that people they give their apparently they give their family like a fake story to tell of what they're working on just to make it easier. And so I'm like, is that going on? Whatever. He worked a couple of different positions. So like towards the end, it was a lot more management stuff. But he talked a lot about lasers and fancy ways to make a laser smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So that was cool. But
Porter's going to be doing that next, right, Porter?
We'll see. I think genomics and that kind of analysis is probably more in my future.
Genomics, huh? Okay, you're going to Cambridge, Mass. Then. All right, I know people there. Let me know when you get there. I'll hook you up.
We'll see. Yeah.
What did you major in, or what's your degree in?
So my undergrad is bioinformatics.
What is that?
It's basically computational biology.
Okay, cool. We always have an argument about Michael Levin on the podcast, and yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to sell this for us, but I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. So what's your interest in there? Like, what was like your goal with that?
Well, for a long time I was considering the pre-med route, but found out I liked programming, and also found out that, since I'm married, that's probably not the best strategy. A little hard on the family.
Is it a lot of hours programming?
Well, just if I go the software route, it's a little easier on family life than the medical.
Well, I'm sure financially you'll be well with like So yeah, trade in some wealth for some better wealth. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yep.
I after I read like the bell curve and I saw like, oh, there's like for someone at like my level, like my speed of learning everything, it's just there's like it's pretty much a toss up if I should go to college. And so I at the time, I ended up going to community college, and I like had plans to, and I started going, and I don't know. Then they started like requiring that I get a booster shot, and I'm like, I really don't want to get the booster shot. So I had to go back after that, and I don't know. And I
be a welder, John. They make more money. Be a welder. They
I don't
make
want
way
to.
more money.
I think about stuff like that, but also welding in particular, I don't want to fuck up my lungs. I think about going to being an electrician sometimes.
Be an electrician. They make more money too.
Yeah, but I'm also super clumsy, and I know I'm the guy that would get shocked. But
yeah, then if you're clumsy, don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. I'm very uncoordinated. It sucks. I'm good at dancing. I've learned to be good at dancing, but I'm like very uncoordinated. If I do anything for long enough, I can usually get pretty good. Like, I remember in football, I just barely made it. I was on the edge of being on light weights. You know what I mean? So I was like 113, and the cutoff is like 113.5 or something like that, and viciously uncoordinated. So I played defensive end, and but I just never left that position, even though like people would look at me and think like, oh, you're a receiver? You're like moderately fast and tall, long arms. It's like, no. But by the time I was senior year, I got to start varsity, so it like ended up paying off. So, but it just like practice, So But yeah, that's really cool, man. Like I'm really happy for you. I know it takes a
Thanks, I
lot of work.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, and good luck with trying to find what you want to do and what you can, put your effort into. So
Sally Joe says, if you can dance, you can be an electrician. Just actually follow procedures. That's actually true to some extent. I want to highlight this too. Ixnan, excellent monologue. Thank you, sir. I'll have to re-listen and take notes. It's worth it. There's patterns in 2014. Like there's patterns there for sure. The Porter, what drew you to come on for this particular live stream?
well, I just figured I watched so many, I just felt like I gotta come on.
Oh, great.
So
No, that's a great reason.
I felt like I'd watched enough videos and kind of understood and caught enough live streams that I'm like, oh, well, I kind of understand what it's about, even if, you know, I was even if the topic was a little. I mean, obviously, I've looked into things in the past, and I'm familiar with a lot of the things that you talked about, and a lot of those things make sense to me. And generally, I have the intuition that, like, you know, the particularly probably around Obama's second term, a lot of things started to shift. And, I just generally, I'm pretty religious, so I just generally chalk things up to like, oh, things are just going to keep getting worse generally. But it does seem that that period is a particular hinge point for sure.
Yeah. When like gloves came off, like no, I have to worry about getting re-election because people were kind of talking about back then. That, like,
No, there's some
we're
some
gonna have a
weird
majority
stuff.
forever, so we don't really have to worry about elections. Is that what you kind of think it was?
There's some weird stuff. A lot of people don't realize this, but the Obama's re-election, they moved people in I think it was Ohio, and that shifted the election.
They moved people to Ohio, like
No,
what do you mean?
within Ohio in districts.
They like you mean like Democrats got together like we're gonna move to this district? I'm gonna move to
No. I mean, like they paid people to move.
Oh,
Like they bought them houses. Oh yeah.
okay.
Oh yeah. You want election interference? Go look into the re-election.
I didn't know that. I'm forgetting. So
No one knows that. Here's the funny part, John. Here's the funny part. It was reported on CNN, and nobody knows it. And this is another funny thing. Like a lot of this, and I have a video on this on the Iraq War thing, right? Second Iraq War. A lot of people don't know what happened. Reported on CNN. Weapons of mass destruction aren't real. I saw one live TV. Like, I don't know what you're even talking about, why you guys are saying this. You're just wrong. Like, I don't even know. I read the UN report. I don't know what to tell you.
Well,
you published the UN report.
Similar to like the Fauci gain of function thing, where he looks in the camera, it's like, we're not doing gain of function research. And I don't know. I would hear
it's the same thing, right?
But like, my understanding is that like, so gain of function research is just when you take a virus that's infectious to humans and then make it more infectious. That's gain of function. But under the definition that him and his squad made, basically changed it to, well, it doesn't count if we take an animal virus and then make it infectious to humans and make it more and more infectious. But at that point,
the definition, the definition was always
firm lines.
No, the definition was no.
You make it infectious.
No, they're just lying. The definition was always basically repeated incubation of the same thing, right? And removal of the things that aren't the thing you want. That's gain of function, right? Effectively, I mean, there's other ways to do that, but effectively, you're looking for an increase in the function of whatever that function is defined to be. It doesn't matter if it's human or not. It never did, right? But that pattern of lying, bald-faced lying, in light of other data, right? And remaking words, like just reinventing what the word vaccine actually means. Which it cannot mean, right?
He
like that pattern
away from Rand Paul and looks at the camera and starts giving the definition. I made like a pretty vicious propaganda ad. I am taking it off because I'm like, what am I doing? But I think it was really good. I'm hoping some people saw it. Just like, this is not a fight you want to do. There's probably a lot of people like me, but like, But literally, yeah, he stops and looks at the camera, like just
Right.
like to like, you know what I mean? And that's just
Right.
like it's like you're literally utilizing the fact that people trust you and the fact that you can come across as really transparent and like
Right.
I don't know yeah. There's a lot of situations like that where I was just brooding on for a while. So maybe I hope I got out with that because I'm actually pretty sure a good amount of people watch it to the end. At least for the stats, you know what I mean? And I'm like, well, hopefully just a few of the right people saw it and showed it around.
But that's the bald-faced lie, right? When you know you're lying and you lie straight to the camera. And that started to happen at some point. And that point was post deregulation of the media. So something happened as the result of the deregulation of the media. And that culminated to some extent in 2014 when the split happened.
What regulations were there prior?
So effectively, except not newspapers, but TV news was a loss leader. You were required, if you wanted to have a TV station, to offer news. You were required to. You had no
offer
choice.
News?
Yes.
So how do you like? Okay, I'm not a fan of like state being like you have to tell the truth.
No. But John, hold on, John. It's worse in every other country. Every other country, the government owns the news. Like in England and Canada, they own the news organization.
Yeah.
Well, that's way worse. And you can argue it would be better if the government didn't do that, but actually that's where we are, and that's why we're here.
I've never heard of this. I've never heard of this. There was like regulations that said that news programs. So how do you define news program, and then how do you define what's news?
No. You needed to offer local news, and you needed to offer national news, right? And they did that through ABC, NBC, and CBS, right? The big three, and so that's how the big three networks happened.
But they're still doing it, right? It's just that people don't watch, right?
No, they don't watch anymore. Before, everybody watched. I mean, Walter Cronkite was a big deal back in the day. I mean, I don't know, but Walter Cronkite was like the biggest name in the world. Like he was news.
It's funny because that's so much of my time. I always just hear people talk about it. I've never like watched.
He was right. Well, but he was very left leaning.
My mom listened to a lot of Rush Limbaugh. My mom is like she's like a hippie, but she's like kind of a black Republican thing going on. And I remember when I finally watched Rush Limbaugh years later, I was like, wait a minute, all these sounds and voices sound familiar. Like, I was like, oh, right. Yeah, right. Like I'm like, this guy sounds like what I think of when I hear radio. And I was like, oh,
but Cronkite was a left-leaning guy. He was a Democrat for sure, but no one could tell. They all thought he was conservative because he was a good journalist and delivered the news very straight. And a lot of other people did like after him to some extent. But in the 80s, when they, quote, deregulated the news organizations and made them for-profit entities, and this is part of what I was saying, is all these people talk about how money is bad and money corrupts and all this, and then they inject money into the news organization and it immediately becomes corrupt. I'm like, you're kind of right about that. Why did you do this, though? Because they always want to pay teachers more money, and they always want to pay, factory workers more money. They always want to pay people more money. I'm like, if you think money corrupts, why do you want to pay people more money? That doesn't make any sense. Like something's going on there, probably within their screwy head. But the problem is when this cracks open,
received definitely corrupts. I feel, you know what I mean? No, it very easily can.
It doesn't. The thing that corrupts is virtues and values, and we're flawed humans. But I mean that you can be corrupt and not make any money. Right, and you can make money and not be corrupt. So that happens all the time.
And often, probably more times than not, at least what I see is that corruption stops you from making money. Like there's a lot of people who make it up and they can do that, but like
you can see corruption. You know what I mean? But you see corruption more readily with money because with money it's amplified. Everything gets amplified.
Yeah,
that's what money does.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So you misread it and go, oh, all the corrupt people have money. It's like no. Corrupt people with money are more visible. That's really all it is.
Yeah. Yes.
The greediest people I have ever met in my life are all poor.
Yeah.
And that's why they're poor, because they're greedy and they don't share. And when you don't share, people don't share with you. And when they don't share with you, when they hit it big, you don't hit it big. Right?
Yeah. Well,
right.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
you're greedy. I'm not going to let you do my accounting in my business.
like I have like a mental list of people that I'm gonna pay back. Well, like, so yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that's a big if. That's a very big if. You know what I mean? But but I do think that like generally, good people have. I think. Never mind. I'm not going to make that point because that's such a rocky thing to say. But well, at least when you're good, you have your peace of mind. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I think that's most important.
Now, West Coast refugees, a connection between corruption and money. No, not really. There's a connection between loss of virtue and corruption, because that's what corruption is.
If money's your goal, that's corruption. I think it's a type of corruption.
Anything can corrupt you. Anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Drugs,
If anything besides God is
depression.
not corrupting you, you know
I
what I mean?
seem to remember. I seem to remember something. The love of money is the root of all evil, or probably a better translation, leads to all kinds of evil.
Yeah. Because money can be an addiction for anything. You can do anything.
Anything can corrupt you, though. And yeah, if you love the wrong thing, you don't have to love money for corruption to happen, right?
Yeah.
You can love your own identity too much, and then you end up in identity politics.
Yeah.
You can love the idea of being a conservative warrior, part of a movement like Lauren Southern.
Yeah.
And she never notices she's not conservative. I'm like, honey,
Well,
you're not
I'm temperamentally
conservative.
I'm definitely not temperamentally conservative. My number one personality trait is I'm very high in openness. I'm very low in orderliness, if you can't tell. I'm in the middle of cleaning my room because I picked up a bunch of stuff, but it's still very dirty over there.
Clean your room, John. That's all that matters.
Well,
You can be more conscientious. You can.
House. I'm very I work a lot and I'm reading a lot and stuff.
You can at least increase the apparent conscientiousness by just adding procedure and discipline to your life, and then you don't need to be so conscientious.
Oh, I'm industrious. I'm just not orally. Like a lot of my personality traits are really mixed. In fact, I'm not even sure how disagreeable I am because whenever I think about where my disagreeability like starts, like where I kind of got like competitive about like, okay, like what's the most like true thing here, and like really kind of argumentative, I think it actually stems from events of my parents' divorce. Because I think I like keeping people calm, I like keeping things relaxed, but like there was a time when my parents were getting divorced and my mom was like, both my parents were trying to convince me that the other one had borderline personality disorder, and a symptom of borderline personality disorder is telling you that someone else has borderline personality disorder. And they both like pulled me aside and were saying that to me, and I was like, I don't know what to believe anymore. And so I think I got really obsessed with like trying to find shit you can hold on to. I think that's where it starts, I guess. It took a long time for me to like let that
If
go.
you have an unstable history, right? You're gonna run into a problem like that
6 times or something, and that's one of the main factors for predicting antisocial behavior. And I was a little antisocial kid.
Yeah, I wouldn't place too much stock in the psychology stuff. I want to read this real quick. West Coast refugee. There is something particularly different about money. No, there actually isn't. Like, this is just picking and choosing Bible verses. No, there actually isn't. This is said about lots of things other than money, right? It's very difficult for rich men to enter the kingdom. It's very difficult for anybody to enter the kingdom, not just rich men. It's like you pick one and you go, ha! See, it's not just one. I think you need to reread the book. There's more than one thing in there. Everybody likes to make money the boogeyman. But you know what? The funny part about that is that's not a solvable problem. It won't help you at all to believe that.
I think does money have a more particular relationship of itself to power than any other than something like lust or like addiction? Because money,
it doesn't. No, that's the funny part though. It actually doesn't.
I'm actually just thinking.
There's zero correlation. That's the funny part. Zero.
Well, I mean, you could buy prostitutes. Like, what? I guess. What do you mean?
You can, but you don't. No. Because money changes hands. Like, in fact, it's not valuable if it doesn't move. This is what people miss. It's where the money goes that determines the corruption, not the fact of the money.
I guess so. I guess. I mean, I do think there's a lot of people who get concerned. I think people who kind of like lost. Like, I think if you're a good person and you're not religious, I mean, whatever. That's a weird claim, but the natural thing you'll think is like a good person is like, well, I'm do good at my job when I make money. You know what I mean? And so like I'm just gonna try and make the most money I can. Like I have a lot of like people telling me like, oh, you're messing up your life because you're not making money, and it's like, well, like I think I will. Like I don't know. I'm a late bloomer, dude. I barely have hair. I don't cut my hair like this. This is just the way it is. Like
Yeah.
so, I don't know.
Yeah, but it's not about the money, but you can't ignore it either because it's a measure of potential value. It's a measure of value in the future. And I like West Coast Refuge. Don't get me wrong. I would give it a try. Being rich, this is the thing. In the US, it's easy to make money. Like Tim Pool talked about this all the time when he was coming up. He said,
Yeah.
I slept on couches for a year when I got my $120K a year job at Vice. Making $120K a year, but he lives in New York City. Super expensive. $120K was nothing in New York City. It might as well be gas and grocery money. And he was smart enough to just crash on people's couches for a year and save as much cash as he could. And it's all about the sacrifice. And now he owns a media company. Those two things are connected. The short-term suffering for a year, probably a little bit more, right, is what led him to his success. It's years of going without, and that's what leads you to the success. And I like what Ixnand says here. Money use reflects values. Exactly. It's the use of money that reflects. It just so happens that you can see that more readily. Like if I have money, I can reflect my values to people I've never met and never will meet. I can't do that if I'm poor. For me to reflect my values to you, if I'm poor, I either have to transmit them over the freaking internet like I'm doing now, or you have to meet me in person. Like there's no other way. Everything else is a reflection. It's the other thing that Lauren Southern talks about in that 3-hour monstrosity video that's just a delusion about her LARPing, and she doesn't know it. It's these people were fakes. And everybody's following them along, and they're stealing money, and they're asking for donations, taking all the donations, and then saying the person administering the money did it, not me, and like throwing them under the bus, and no one's squealing on anyone else. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? You people are sociopaths.
Yeah,
you're not conservatives, you're sociopaths.
I think the idea of LARPing with like development, because I think if you're trying to like change a lot, you're going to be an imposter syndrome. You're going to have the imposter syndrome like state more often. I feel. Maybe.
I don't buy into imposter syndrome.
Really?
I think that's bad.
I've whenever I get like a promotion, I'm like I know when I was manager at Skechers, I was like, I don't feel like I know.
Imposter syndrome is something imposter syndrome is something that you feel when you're unconfident about your ability.
Yeah, that happens whenever you go out to an unexplored.
No, that happens to some people. It's never happened to me.
Really? Okay. I don't know.
No, I assume if somebody asks me to do something that they believe I can do it, and I go, that must mean that I can do it.
Like the other day, one of my managers, he just asked me to go on a job by myself to install some stuff. You know what I mean? And he was just kind of like, like figure it out. I'm gonna go, and I'm not really sure how to do this. And like, I think that's what you have to do. I mean,
your imposter syndrome is optional.
How to learn by yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing to follow directions, but
that either means that you're always an imposter, which is silly. Like why waste your time using the term, or it's a bad frame, or it's a very specific frame, but it's a personal frame. It's nothing anybody. Like I can't look at somebody else and tell that they have imposter syndrome. That's impossible. It's something that's personal to their experience. And it's just a sign of low confidence, low self-confidence.
Yeah. Well, I think like on one side you have being bored, on one side you have like imposter syndrome, and then it's like when you're trying to get in that spot.
No, if you have imposter syndrome, you just have a self-confidence problem. Like I've never had imposter syndrome ever.
I think sometimes you shouldn't be confident. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you should be a little timid. Sometimes you should be like,
that's okay, but then I'm not an imposter. Like if I walk into a job and I go, well, I don't know if I can do this, but let's see how it goes. There's no imposter there.
You're just
yeah, you're being honest. Like I don't understand. There's no reason for that state. It's not required. I'm not saying it never happens.
What happens when you just like are at a position that you're just not fully, because sometimes you kind of fall back you're behind your confidence level or behind your competence level or something like that, where it's like, I've been in this job for too long, I need to do something else. And sometimes you get thrust too forward.
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
like,
but John, we have a better word for that. It's called
I'm not the
incompetence.
person you think I am.
No, it's called incompetence. Like, some people are incompetent. Like, this is the problem with stupid people. Stupid people don't know they're stupid. Delusional people don't know they're delusional.
I think
They're not in a state. They're not.
I mean, do you people know they're stupid? I mean, like, don't you think there's kind of variability with that? Like, some people probably think they're stupider than they are, and then some people probably think they're way smarter than they are. I think there's probably.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with the external reality. See, this is what people get mixed
How is
up.
that not? Yes, it is. You can't just believe whatever is in your
No,
head.
how I feel is my internal reality. You have no access to it. You're external to me. You have no access to it. None. Zero.
Okay,
you don't
but
have
your
access to
external
it.
reality manifests in the world.
No, it doesn't. No,
Yes,
it absolutely does not. That's the confusion everybody
That's
has.
you have whatever you're thinking about, you'll head towards.
Lauren Southern said on a video a year ago, I don't know how she feels about it now, that she was a conservative. She's never been a conservative ever. The woman is delusional.
It's a little foolish. I mean, she doesn't know what the word conservative, because people conflate the term conservative.
Delusional.
I purposely do this on my that's why I say deeply closeted conservative man on my Twitter. Is because, like, yeah, I'm obviously not conservative, but like, if I'm talking to a lot of liberals for a long time, they'll realize that, like, why does this guy have traditional values? They don't realize it because I don't think they even know what traditional values are. That's why I say deeply closeted, because, like, you can't tell.
Right.
And
You don't
also
have to worry.
sneaky
Right. But this is,
values.
right.
Kind of.
Look at
Not purposely, but just
but
my,
John,
what my aims are. You know what I mean? This is
John,
what I
John,
people, yeah.
look at the people who cut up garbage barrels and rushed the cops in riot gear. They're delusional. They don't know they're delusional. They have no concept that they're delusional. They think they're heroes and they're going to win this battle of rushing through the lines of riot police in riot gear when they're dressed in plastic.
I bet at least a couple of them know they're bad. But yeah.
No, they don't. No, they really don't.
Do you think, okay, this is the thing that Jordan Peterson always argues with people about, is if some people actively can aim for evil. You know what I mean?
People can, but you're universalizing. Most people don't, and they don't have to.
Okay, fair.
Right. That's the confusion everybody has, because we want a simple view of the world. Everybody has imposter syndrome. No, they don't.
So, like, I mean,
do not have imposter syndrome. Sorry. Maybe you do. That's unfortunate.
To what you're talking about earlier, like in 2016, I ended up getting arrested by the police. Essentially, it started off from jaywalking. I had a bad night, and literally we ended up leaving a party. What happened was, like, we were there, and we were trying to talk to everyone about politics, like, right before the night before the election. Like, we were nice about it. Me and my brother, we were just like, hey, man, like, I don't get what you think, but, like, so why would you vote for Trump? Like, we just don't understand. And they were, like, explaining to us. And anyways, I was on the roof with someone talking about something. I was underage at the time. But all of a sudden, my brother was freaking out. And I guess a lot of, like, the baseball team started, I don't know what happened, but they started, like, yelling, calling him, like calling him a nigger and stuff, and saying that he doesn't deserve to go to the school because he's a nigger and he's just there for, like, his athletics or something like that. And so, like, me and all the other black people left. I was already hyped, and this was around 2016. There was a bunch of, like, videos and stuff going on. And when the police came up to me for jaywalking, you know what I mean? Like, I ran across the streets, and I'm eccentric, so I was telling a story and I ran to explain something. And to explain something, but they came up and they were talking to me, and I lied about my name because, like, the year before I had gotten pulled over for pot, and I wasn't starting yet, but I didn't get to play for, like, 2 games, and we just made it to the playoffs, and so, like, I wasn't gonna risk that, and so I lied about my name, and it didn't go well. They seemed to have warrants out for my arrest, and so, like, something like 5 officers surrounded me, and they, like, wrestled me to the ground. And they couldn't get my arms because I was, like, a lot buffer back then. And, like, they're like, we're going to tase you. And I was like, please don't tase me. And then they, like, started tasing me. And somewhere out there, there's a mugshot that's really funny with, like, blood on my face. And I wonder where that is. But, like, anyways, but at the time, like, I'm like, these guys are the bad guys. And I went into that situation thinking that they're going to get me no matter what. And now I realize, like, what a fool I was. You know what I mean? Right. And especially that video of that guy in Wendy's who was fighting with the police that was just scared. Like, honestly, like, I feel bad. I feel bad that his situation was made so public. for one, because if my situation was made public, like I probably wanted it to at the time, because I was an idiot. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, it's just embarrassing. You know what I mean? And people don't realize that.
Right.
I mean, I guess you could say that's
Right.
delusional.
Well, and it's
you know,
not necessarily
like,
embarrassing at the time.
Delusional. It's like everyone's kind of delusional to some degree, because like no one really knows what's truly right and what's wrong. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe the term delusional is definitely
Yeah,
relevant.
that's not necessarily delusional. We don't have full access to reality as such the way we want to join the club, right?
Yeah.
But like Lauren Southern, like she's just delusional. Like she's like, I was part of a political movement. No, you weren't. I was part of the
Oh.
conservative political movement and part of rebel media. That doesn't even make any sense. Like, what are you talking about? That's lunacy.
I haven't been living under a rock, and I've been, relatively following conservative politics since probably 2018. I don't know who Lauren Southern is or Rebel Media, so I don't know. Maybe she wasn't part of it. I don't know.
She pretty much built Rebel Media to a large extent. Yeah. And that was the thing. Like that was the split. The guy who started Rebel Media left TV media. He left the TV scene and exited and started an online thing. And then so did everybody else. Like they all started in 2013, 2014.
That's always going to be the natural move, though. I mean, people who did that the first were probably, even if they went to something that ended up failing, like at least they were kind of ahead on the curve, being like, oh, infinite data, infinite channels. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Of course, the problem is that like it's likes for quality, and so it's like everyone just watches like Jordan Peterson and John Oliver. And you know what I mean? Like those channels both get like billion views, and then like, but like
ends up
funny.
But everything always ends up around a hierarchy. Like even within her little movement, Milo for some reason was part of the like he's the man, and he's a total scumbag. Like he's just a bad person. Like everything about him is awful. Everything. He's just horrible. Milo Yiannopoulos.
Oh.
He was lying about everybody. He was trying to blackmail everybody. Literally trying to blackmail everybody. And everybody's trying to blackmail everybody else. Tommy Robinson's trying to blackmail people. Like everybody's trying to blackmail everybody else except Lauren, right? She's the only squeaky clean person in this, apparently. And I believe her. Like she sounds like a crazy idealist who was LARPing to me, right? And the thing is, none of them are smart enough to just pull the curtain off and say, nah, bro, you're trying to blackmail people. I'm not going to believe you.
What do you mean by blackmail?
They were trying to blackmail each other. They were trying to get dirt on each other and then use it to threaten and say, you have to let me in on your tour. You can't go to South Africa without me. You can't go to Australia without. Say stupid things.
Yeah,
right? Because they were trying to steal each other's audience.
I was happy for him to share his like experience that like of how the gay community often functions, because I'm like, yeah, I've seen that a lot. Like, yeah.
The gay mafia.
Yeah.
The gay mafia is not real. Oh yes, it is.
So
yeah. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard these people's names, but I hope they're not wildly influential because I don't know anything about them.
Well, they weren't. That's the thing.
Keep going to church. Keep going to church and working on genes, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. But like that's the thing. She's thoroughly convinced she was part of a movement, and I'm like, she didn't move anything. Like I don't know what to say. Not that she didn't have an impact.
Eccentric gay conservative who's now converted. Who I think he wasn't like he was married for a while, and I think now he has a wife and kids. Right,
Milo?
He decided to be straight. He's just straight now.
I don't know about Milo. I have no idea.
I don't know how much of his life is fake. But he used to give speeches like dressed like a stripper, talking about conservative values, like essentially, like wearing like high shorts in the fleet. Yeah. I don't know what he was doing.
he was a provocateur.
Yeah, exactly.
He was just a provocateur, which is fine.
I think because now he hangs out. Doesn't he hang out with like Nick Fuentes a lot or something? I
have no idea, but they made some money doing it.
Was recently. I don't even know who he is really. I just saw one video of him ranting about Jews on Twitter, and I was like, oh.
I did a video about Destiny, right? A live stream with Manuel and a few other folks there, and yeah, Nick Fuentes was in a spaces with with Destiny and Andrew Tate, and what a mess. They did a better job defending, and they're in a little bubble too, and it's a little bubble. And look, some of them are going to make some money because hierarchy is real. This is one of the things Lauren Southern said. She said these guys like Tommy Robinson, when they lose their support staff, you don't see them anymore. That's not because they were censored. That's because they lost the talent. Because you can't do that alone. You can think, oh, I've got a cell phone, I can be popular alone, but almost no one can actually pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
All these guys have support staffs. All the big YouTube channels, they all have editors and support. I have an editor, thank goodness, right? Because I just couldn't even deal with editing my own videos.
Is that Sally? It's Sally, isn't it?
Nope, Sally doesn't edit my videos at all. Nope, she does a bunch of artwork for me, but no, I get a bunch of people.
I'm still working on those drawings, by the way. I was gonna work on it again this morning, and I'm
looking forward to it, John. But take your time. Yeah. No rush.
I mentioned the power's out this morning. It's not fun.
But that's the thing. These guys have a big staff behind them. Some of them have a little staff, but they're not the talent. It takes a lot of people to be in the spotlight. Like, you can't be in the spotlight by yourself. It's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then that means you need good people around you, and you can't be surrounded by bad people.
Joe Rogan and Jamie. How many people is it just them two?
And Joe Rogan, I don't think so. Joe Rogan gets into it because of Adam Carolla, who's the godfather of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, all this stuff is connected in ways you don't understand. You think because what you see is one person, that's what's going on. That's not what's going on. The world is way deeper and wilder and weirder than you see.
Speaking of, when I saw Joe Rogan, I thought the CIA was trying to kill me, so I cut off all my hair and I was wearing this wig.
That doesn't help.
Sean, I don't know. I'm a little crazy, by the way, Porter. I had like a little bit of like I spun out a little bit, living by myself for the first time, and yeah, I don't know if you, whatever. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't.
According to Sally Joe, Milo was gay, married, and then dramatically threw his wedding ring in the ocean for Jesus. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, what?
That's cool, but like, I don't believe
misinterpretation about eunuchs.
I guess I don't understand. He went through a big transformation, though. To be fair to Milo, like a big transformation. Yeah, because he had a revelation about how he ended up being gay, and that was a big. Sally Joe, big confession. Quite liked Milo for a bit. Comedy tours during 2015, 2018. When she was at art college. How interesting. I never liked Milo. I like some of the things he said, right? Because he was fighting the bad guys, but it just turned out that all they did was made woke worse at the end of the day. They had the opposite of the intended effect. Yeah, Sally Joe, lol. I don't got time for my own video editing. Yeah, you haven't seen Sally's channel. She's not a video editor.
What do you mean?
She's minimal video editing. Yeah.
Okay.
No, there's a lot of people behind my channel. The artwork, some of that Sally Joe, some of it's my my partner Sarah, who does a lot of the, updated all the thumbnails, right? It's doing a lot of the graphics. We had Bill help us out over in England. We had Yana help us out when she was in Canada, and she might do some more of that animation in the beginning. That was all Yana. Yeah, I mean, obviously I didn't do my little opening song there, right? That was another friend of ours who did all that. She did all that work. That was amazing. And that suggestion came from somebody else, from Boom Shroom up in the Rebel Mountains. Like, and I have a video editor, right? And then the music for the animation, the music for the animation that's in my regular videos on the channel, the recorded ones, that's done by somebody else, right? That's done by Rizzy. So there's a bunch of stuff going on, and that's the whole thing. What Sally Joe says, Joe Rogan and Jamie has the whole comedy network and UFC. Yeah, that's the other thing. Joe Rogan has tons of experience in media. Like, a lot of these people had experience in media before they went into the online scene. And there's 4 jobs. There were 4 jobs for years built Joe Rogan. Yeah, Joe Rogan built up over a long time. Plus, he was a Boston kid. So Boston's the best, obviously.
Speaking of people helping you out, I mean, I don't know if you have enough support at this point, but I'm looking forward if you ever start a Substack because I feel like that would probably be the best way for me to be able to share things with people I know. They tend to be more interested in reading something than watching something that they, I don't know, watching someone speak about abstract things where you can't pause and other things is sometimes I feel like hard for people to grasp.
Porter, I got a Substack which I haven't quite launched yet, and I keep meaning to, but I keep getting sick is the problem. That I fall behind, and then I don't have time to write. But I have two websites. You can write for petersonsphere.com or markofwisdom.org. We could use some articles.
Oh boy. Well, I still feel like I'm trying to this is one of those things where like the first time I saw one of your videos, I was just like, what even is this? I couldn't really understand it because
Yep.
um I see the utility from what I understand is like trying to speak to people in a way that, you know, obviously get them to focus on meaning and show patterns in the world, which is something that makes sense to me. I'm just used to it in a religious context, and that just comes to me naturally. So
Mhm.
trying to figure out the words that you were using, and then I'm like, okay, this does make sense. But and it's one of those things that the reason I wouldn't leave it alone is because, you know, it's just something that sticks with you. Like true things generally tend to do that. Even if they're weird at the start and you don't understand them, you just, you know, keep them on the back burner for a while till you can stomach it or whatever. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe at some point if I feel like I have something useful to say, some to but it's really like translating it all in my brain, like from some principle probably derived from scripture into secular speak.
That would be amazingly useful if you could manage to do that. And I can, we can help you. There's a whole group of us. We can help you. If you get Discord, we got a Mark of Wisdom Discord. You
Yes,
can
I
come
will
on there.
probably, yeah, I probably will.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, we could use more articles. Petersonsphere.com too. Like that can just be like, if you know Peterson and you want to talk about Peterson and how he's affected your
Yeah, I
life.
mean, I like Jordan Peterson and I know a lot of his stuff. I tried to watch, you know, John Vervaeke's Awakening from the Meaning series, Crisis series, but it was I didn't get very far. It was an interesting. I think he starts out the whole thing by going back, you know, however million years or whatever, and
Right, right.
which makes sense. I understand like why that would appeal to you if you're coming from a certain maybe like nihilistic frame, but I was just like, this isn't like super useful to me. I mean, I understand like what he's probably going to be building up to and all of this, and it's interesting, but I don't know. I might give it another try at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I can synthesize all his work for you however you want. So just let me know. I can just do that on the fly anytime you want. Not a problem. So I'm fairly well versed. So yeah, there's a lot there, and some of it's good, some of it's not. Sally Joe says you're hired. We can pay you $0 for now. That's Sally. She's in charge
Well,
sometimes, or at least she thinks she is. Oh,
I
here
mean,
we
most
go.
worthwhile
Help
things you
Mark
don't
be
get paid for. So.
average. She says she can't ask enough stupid questions alone. So there you go. That's your contribution right there.
Yeah, I mean, I had yeah, I just get generally confused in both ways. On the software thing, I get confused because I'm like, wow, I don't know these technologies, but I can tell you understand the history and what's going on. So I need to try to keep this in the back of my mind until I understand it. And then on this side, I'm like, oh, I don't really understand it. But then I sometimes I get around the lingo a little more and more.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's hard because it's purely secular materialist on purpose, right? Like it's
yeah.
very deliberately that way because that's what I grew up in. I didn't
Hmm.
go to church. I don't know what you're talking about, I didn't read
Hmm.
that book. Sounds good. Never get around to it, right? So so but those if they're true, right, they're available either way, and that's sort of my
Yeah.
point. Like then you need to make them accessible. I think Peterson does that. He makes them accessible to people who
Yeah.
otherwise wouldn't have access.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like that maybe the trick he's using is just, you know, saying, oh, and using it from a psychological perspective. and then he can use pseudo spiritual words for it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, well, that's part of it. That's one of his tricks for sure.
yeah, no, that's interesting, and I guess maybe you can tell me how accurate this is. If I were to rephrase what I feel like is going on with what you're doing on this channel, it's mainly trying to rephrase or maybe redefine certain or maybe just define, get a common definition for certain terms and relate them to meaningful patterns in the world, something like that.
Yep. Yeah, that's a pretty good approximation. Yeah. I mean, nothing you said was wrong. I would say ultimately, I'm trying to give you very efficient, very concise definitions for words that allow you to recognize all the patterns that you need.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, my argument would be you need a surprisingly small number of them, words and patterns, to understand everything.
So where
Yeah,
do you come up with an idea that like navigating in the world is three-dimensional? Like once you said that, it makes sense to me that it's not just like point A to point D. I mean, it models my own life where like it's difficult to find, to try to develop wisdom and to overcome different trials. Like it requires, thinking on your feet and pondering and thinking about different situations as they come. But it's
mhm.
just like I feel like this just like doesn't come. It's just so random. It's like a computer concept almost to me. It's like, oh, you're just like moving in three-dimensional space. Yeah, I don't know. It
No,
just
well,
I would
one
have
of the way
never come to that.
no, you don't come to it, you live in it. And the way you come to communicate it is actually super simple. It turns out that if you do rote work, right? If you do something boring, but
Yep.
something that you can do, and you're forced to do that, or you force yourself to do it,
Mhm.
that can be meditation, by the way, because meditation, I
Yeah.
mean, meditation is a concentrated form of that. It's not the best. I actually don't recommend it for most people, right? I'm more do the dishes, right?
Well, yeah, and
Go for a
that's what
walk.
I do. I have a custodial job. I was working
Mm.
at Walmart, and it was pretty similar, and I would listen to deeper things, and I like to listen to podcasts. That's pretty much only what interests me,
Oh no,
interesting things, and
I would say don't listen to podcast.
oh,
Right. Do the rote work and don't listen to anything. Think things
uh-huh.
through. The
Yeah, I guess
wisest
yeah.
people that I know, they work with their hands and they have long stretches of work or driving or something,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And what happens is because they do that, because they take time where they're not efficient at all. Like when you're driving, one of the guys I know is Jefferson. I love Jefferson. He's awesome. And he was on BOM and stuff like that
Mhm.
ages ago. But and then I sort of met him more on Clubhouse. He drives around the country, like a significant portion of the Midwest, right? Fixing machines, custom built machines that feed livestock, chickens. I think just chickens. So he's got the right, and he works for a company in Texas, and he lives way up in Memphis, Tennessee, outside of Memphis, Tennessee, and he just drives around all over the place. So these long stretches where he's not doing anything. He is one of the wisest people I've ever met because
Mm.
he adds time, and that adds depth of thought, right? And the
Yeah.
problem is, and I was listening to Peterson earlier today. In fact, just before I came on, I was relaxing, listening to some Peterson that Bruce got me, um, got me into, and I was listening to this. It was a very good distillation of Peterson, and he was saying like, "Oh yeah, it's direction, direction, direction," and I'm like, "No, Jordan, it's not. It's orientation, orientation, orientation." But the reason why direction works is because, and this is where I agree with Peterson. You got to start them there. You have to start them there. Like, hey, first like get the idea that there is a good direction, right? That direction is important. And then realize orientation is required, right? You gotta
Mhm.
layer the messages kind of slowly on people, right? Because they gotta have a certain skill set before they proceed to the next level. That's really the problem. And once you sort of realize that, once you get a feel for that, then you can kind of step in, right? And keep stepping up and stepping up and stepping up. That I think is where everybody misses, especially we'll say the Christians, or the Cathodox, they want to drag people up. They want to say like, oh, John Vervaeke's one concept away from going to church. No, he's not. He's like a dozen concepts away from going to church, right? But you need those interim steps, or it's not gonna hold. Like you have to step people through things very slowly. So it helps to do work where you're like busy work with your hands that's very regular, so you don't have to think too hard, but think inside your head and not get distracted, so that you get an idea for how things work over time.
Yeah.
Welcome back, John.
Hey, yeah, sorry, my phone.
Lost porter.
So I have a cold bag of peaches. I'm gonna rest on it every once in a while and see if that works. So
That's all right.
yeah, no, I've had a lot of jobs like that, which is why I kind of prefer jobs where like working at carpentry, making pizzas. I mean, the sales and serving jobs are nice to have because they got me really used to talking to people. But yeah, like I can play podcasts nonstop, and I consider this my university, and it's been great because like yeah, you can listen literally to the best professors endlessly, and then after a while you kind of pick up, okay, all these people mentioned this book, like I should read this book, which I'm a slow reader, so it's like, you know what I mean, I can really focus my attention on some stuff. Oh, did he leave?
Yeah, you had internet problems.
Oh, okay, whoops.
Like you.
Yeah.
You know what that's
yeah,
like.
well, that was my fault. Actually, what happened was I thought I was locked out of the house, and so I climbed through the window, which I do sometimes, and I knocked over the router and it pulled it, so it's broken because of me. So that's my life. So
Ah, here he is. He's back.
cool. Okay. Yeah.
No, but just not even listening to podcasts, but just engaging and thinking.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
And doing the rote work.
And luckily, I usually, I find myself having to skip back hours because at some point I just start thinking, and the podcast is like white noise.
Same. Yeah. An hour podcast will be like 2 hours long. Yeah. Have you heard of Michael Levin? I don't want to like. No? Okay. It'd be. I'm just bringing it up because I think his research is cool. He's at like the forefront of bioengineering, and he posts a lot of cool videos on his channel, talking about regenerative medicine, and there's a lot of cool. I want to get this right. Whatever. I'm going to say it like this. He has a different way of saying it. He's very particular. He particularly says, "I'm not talking about a philosophy," but he has a particular like a way of approaching his research that gets really cool results, and it's basically at the base of it is that like everything is teleological from the base up. Is everything is goal directed, and from the base up, and that there's no really hard lines between things.
Right.
Whatever. I don't want to get into it.
He's got it completely backwards. Yeah.
What do you mean?
Teleology is outside yourself. It's not from the base up. It's from the top down. It's emanation.
Oh, that's fine. Like, I mean, I think from a certain perspective, like, I mean, he's doing his research, you know what I mean? And so I think he's focused on that level. I'm not really
I've
sure
seen him, John.
He talks a lot about incorporeal patterns being kind of
I've seen him, and if you watch his Twitter space, you know exactly what's wrong with that guy. And he is lost. And it is funny the mistakes he makes.
Dude,
really funny.
Like I have personal critiques, but that are outside of his realm of research. You know what I mean? And so like I'm not gonna like bang on him for me being like it's not a proper biblical understanding. I mean I have, because like if he's gonna get in the Bible,
yeah, of course you would have that. Like he's definitely not a biblical guy. But like his research would actually be useful if he were. If he understood emanation, like all his stuff would make sense.
I think it is useful. Like I think it's very dangerous, but like I think it could be very. I think
it's very dangerous, and it's not going to end up being useful. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So you never know.
If teleology is coming top down, I guess in the genetics part, you would say there's something going on with epigenetics there, modifying your own genes in accordance with what situations you're putting yourself in.
Yes,
Well,
well, a
is
lot
it-
talked about is that your body does modifies your genes. You know what I mean? Like you can even remove like the genes that what you normally associate, like you give of like a fly eyes. And within a couple generations, it'll rebuild the eyes without needing the gene. You know what I mean?
Right.
They'll continue on. And so
Right.
like the genes are kind of more like a storehouse of material or blueprint. I'm not really sure how to put those together. I mean, you probably know.
They
You
don't,
know,
they
you know
don't,
what I mean?
they don't,
But, like, the
no,
body
they
is
don't know
kind
how
of-
it works, right?
I would
The
love
genes
for
are
you to- yeah.
the genes are a third of the picture. The epigenome seems to be a third of the picture, and I bet mRNA is a third of the picture, roughly.
Mhm.
And I bet there's a
Yeah.
remainder, and I bet I know what the remainder is, but no one. That ain't a science
Really?
thing.
I would be interested. Yeah. Oh,
It's
are
not a
you
science
mean
thing.
like agency of some sort or?
Now, telos.
Well,
The
no,
rest
and
of
his
it-
argument is that there's agency at the bottom. You know what I mean? And when we get to there's agency at the bottom, I think it's also implied there's agency at the top. You know what I mean? I don't think that those two things, but I think the problem is with normal the scientific viewpoint, people think it's like mechanical machinery, you know, at the base,
It's-
and then somehow that
Science is
produces-
emergence first, right? Whoop. John left again. He must have hit something. Science is all emergence first, right? But the best scientists ever, all of them, have been religious. Every single one. I don't think that's a
Yeah.
coincidence.
I definitely, yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think I mean, the idea that you would be able to predict from the genome to what you call the transcriptome to the proteome, how would you be able to figure out what's happening there? And yeah, I definitely think there's an unscientific element, so to speak.
Well, they can't. So Porter, I had worked at this genomics company. It was famous at the time, but I worked with this guy, and he was published in Nature. He was he was a published PhD, very interesting guy. And I ran into him on the street like a year later or something, and he was working for the Human Genome Project.
Mhm.
And I just a quick conversation. It's like, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Blah blah blah. Right? I haven't seen you in a while. Where'd you land? That sort of thing. And he said, yeah, I'm with the Human Genome Project. We're almost halfway through, and we've done the math, and we
I don't
know
know if
this
people can
isn't
see
going to
you
work.
right now. I'm not sure. This isn't in the room, but I can't.
Whoops. He said, we know this isn't going to work. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, we know this doesn't explain what we told Congress it would explain when they spent the money.
Yeah, how that seems to have not had the extreme effects that we all thought that it would.
Right. But they knew less than halfway through, they knew that was going to happen.
Interesting.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
they did the
definitely,
math.
I would love to know that. I know there are unsolved mysteries there, and I mean,
Tons.
who knows if that's where I end up looking into. That would be very, very interesting because I don't know if in terms of software, I'm definitely more interested in back end and systems kind of stuff because just building another good looking web app isn't necessarily that interesting to me. So
Sally Joe says there is more than is understood in life. And she says life remains a mystery. Hallelujah. There you go.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's always something you can find, and there's always something useful to be found.
Yeah.
But usefulness relies on telos. It doesn't rely on finding random emergent properties.
That's true. Yeah, that's definitely true.
That's the mistake everybody's making. They think random emergent properties are going to do the trick, and they don't seem to.
Yeah, if they discover enough things, then it'll become useful. Or
Right,
something like that.
Right. That's their
So,
that's their
or
thesis.
postulate, or yeah, just especially in physics. With you recommended Sabine Hassenfelder at some point, and I looked at what she was talking about, and yeah, very interesting there. Well, my phone's about to die, but I appreciate the conversation. I'll probably hop off, and sorry I wasn't too focused on 2014 just because of how
No problem.
ignorant, not really living through living that. Appreciate it.
No problem, Porter. It was
See
great
you
to meet
guys.
you.
Yeah,
See
thank you.
You
Yeah,
made it back, John. What's going on over there?
I know. I
Hey,
should chill out talking about things that are above my pay grade. But yeah. Anyways, so how's it going?
Going good. I
Does
just
Father
did it.
Eric not like me?
I don't know.
I get the
You have
sense
to
he
ask
doesn't,
him.
I don't. I feel like he doesn't want me on his channel. I feel like if I went there, he would try and sever me.
I have no idea, John. I don't recall having an in-depth discussion with him about you. So you're
Okay.
asking the wrong guy. You should
Fair
ask him. He's a
I'll,
priest. He has to tell you the truth.
I'll see if he would let me on. Yeah. I think. Well, okay. Okay. On his channel, you said that that you like. Do you think that God guides evolution?
I don't think that's the right way to think about it, but
Okay.
I think that's one way to think about it that almost
God
can't
guides
be wrong.
Huh?
But I don't think it's that kind of relationship. But
Okay.
like
Because we
people
have free will type thing is what you're saying.
No. The problem is that people pretend as though evolution is somehow overlapping or conflicting with the idea of God, and it absolutely 1000% cannot be. Not that it isn't. It's
Well,
not
okay.
even.
Okay.
an
So though
option.
you made two different things. For me, it's like it's obviously. I mean, I wouldn't use the word overlapping, but like I don't. I think God. Everything's logical. You know what I mean? Everything that God create, everything in this world is logical.
Everything,
I'm not saying it's more than that. It is more than that. But I'm saying it's also that.
everything might be logical if you're God. Oh,
Okay.
I'll never know that. So what difference does it make?
No, I mean, just like you guys kept. I mean, I guess I'm confused of how you guys conceptualize the world. I guess because I feel like you make a separation, and I make a separation between like materialism and God to some degree. I definitely do, but like but in the same way, like it's a heaven and earth deal. It's just they're different things, but you know what I mean. Like God is what gives everything, and God is what gives things the earth form and meaning. You know what I mean? So like to me, it doesn't have to be a separate thing. You know what I mean? Like I think to some degree, like I mean, the idea like Christ existed at the beginning of time. You know what I mean? And so like we're made in His image, and like there was, I don't see.
I don't know how that.
I
How does
don't
that
see
deal?
at any point the laws of nature were broken to bring that about or anything like that.
Well, I don't know what the laws of nature are, but I don't need to. So like to me, it's like, well, maybe.
I mean, I don't know what they all are either.
Right, that's the thing. Like again, like if the universe is logical only to God, why is that your business? At some point, this is why pragmatism is helpful. It gives you a stopping point. Like, why are you, if you think you're part of a movement and you don't move anything, then you know you're not part of a movement, and then you don't have to worry about whether or not you're part of. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
you're being led right at that point.
But like everything's like that. This is why pragmatism rules.
No. I don't think that because like not everything you do has consequences. You know what I mean? It might not be the consequences you intended. So I think you're doing something.
No, everything you do has lots of consequences. That's what people don't want to hear.
Endless consequences.
Lots
consequences. Yeah.
It's Jordan Peterson. Everything you do matters. Yes, everything you do matters, and everything you do matters in ways you can't imagine. Yes, that's worse. It's way worse.
Yeah. Way better or way worse, depending on what it is you did, I guess.
Oh, if you have miracle, it's not a problem. West Coast refugee. It's the logician that goes mad. Chesterton. Yeah, G.K. Chesterton.
Logician that goes mad. What does that mean? So logician tries to fit everything within a logical framework. I'm not doing that. I'm saying that,
he's not accusing anybody of anything. He's just pulling out a quote, right?
You know what I mean? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, there's a reason why it happened.
He's pulling out a Chesterton quote, which is correct. Like, yeah, I mean, you need miracle in the world. Like, you need mystery in the world. You need uncertainty in order for things to happen that are unexpected. Otherwise, everything's predictable and expected. How that happens is that who cares? Like, what difference does it make?
I guess I feel like I was getting the vibe that you guys thought I was violating that, and I was like, I don't see how that is. You know what I mean? It's
I don't know. I think I think, like I said, if you want to know what Father Eric thinks, you should talk to Father Eric, not to me.
Well, I want to know you think, I guess, because I'm saying like I don't understand. I guess I don't understand how you reconcile all that. And maybe you're saying you can't. You know what I mean? Like when I'm like,
I don't even bother with can or can't. Sometimes I just bother with why do I need to?
I need to. Well, I mean, if you want to bring people on board, you shouldn't start talking about things that violate mathematics or something like that, and say like, oh, it's like, you know what I mean? Like I think there are endpoints that you can bring people on with. You know what I mean? And I don't see. Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess that.
Maybe. I mean, math just doesn't explain anything important. So there's that.
I think I'm trying to meet people where they are, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know where people are. Like, I don't know people's internal state. So
no, okay. Well, as a person who wasn't, yes, I think I know what a lot of people are. I think it is like me, probably were portrayed at some point, and they would only want to hold on to something firm. And it's like, well, I mean, Christ is the firmest thing you can hold on to. And
in one sense, yeah.
What do you mean by that?
People don't have access to that type of firmness or grasp holding on to, then that won't work for them.
I think everyone has access to Christ if they allow it.
Yeah, what if they're not allowing it, right?
Well, no, exactly. And
well, then there you go. That's my point.
Well, I'm not a Calvinist.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else is either. But I think they fooled themselves into thinking they could be. So
what denomination are you, by the way?
Huh?
What denomination are you?
I'm not. I don't deal with any of that.
Oh, okay. I
just don't even.
I'm curious.
No, I mean, that's why I don't generally discuss any of that stuff. I'm like, no, I don't identify that way. I don't have to.
I mean, you go after the Protestants a lot. I know you're not Protestant.
Yeah, well, I don't think. Yeah, they're nothing but rebels, so they just have a fancy name for themselves. But yeah, ultimately, that's not my fault. That's just historical observation.
How do you define a rebel?
A rebel is somebody that resists hierarchical order.
Okay.
You know, if somebody plants a flag, they'll go, that flag's not the right color, or that flag's planted the wrong place, or that. It's like, maybe, but you didn't plant one. So what do you expect?
But you're also pretty critical of a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, do you consider yourself a rebel in that way? Because like, there's a lot of main, you could say, the hierarchy in different things. Are you just saying that no, those hierarchies are just
pointing things out is not critiquing them. Judging them with authority is critiquing them, but pointing things out.
I think you might judge a little with.
Sometimes I judge, but sometimes you can. I mean, if somebody murders a baby, you can judge them. Like, there's no problem there. Like, I don't understand. Like, why is that bad?
Okay.
Right? Like,
wait. I think I'm missing the point. Like,
the point is, it matters how many details there are, and there's different things that I'm doing. And yeah, sometimes I'm judging. You have to judge to take an action in the world.
Yeah.
Anytime you take an action in the world, you've made a judgment. Why is that bad? That's not bad. That can't be bad. It's required. You have no choice, no option. Okay, so you can say, oh, you're judging things you're not supposed to, and I'm like, maybe. Why don't you bring me some evidence that that's happening? And I always invite people to do that, and no one ever does. You know, or occasionally someone does, and you know, occasionally they're right, but almost no one ever does. And that's fine too, but also
I'm leaning forward because I'm doing the peaches thing.
What?
I'm leaning forward right now because I'm doing the peaches thing to make sure my phone doesn't overheat.
Oh, that's fine.
Those are my clothes that I'm doing. Ignore that.
But you see, there's different modes. I'm doing different things at different times for different reasons. And people are welcome to give feedback or even criticism of that. It's just the problem for them is usually they can't. It's not my fault. Right? And like, just because you can't discern good and bad, and you can say everybody can discern good and bad, and then I'm going to point you at the video with these overgrown children who cut up garbage cans.
No,
some people can.
Right? That's what causes the fall.
No, some people can, and some people cannot. Like, it's not a
Maybe
universal.
agree. Well, no, I think only God can, right?
Oh no, you have to know what's good in the world to do good, and some people do good. Like they definitely know.
Well,
There's no
okay,
question
but
about it.
isn't this okay? But like those protesters, I think they know they're doing good. That you're talking about at the beginning. I think they know
They weren't doing good, and they weren't doing anything. They were just looking like morons, and they have no idea that they were looking like morons.
I don't see the point you're making.
They might see that they're morons later, but when they were doing it, they didn't realize what they were doing was counter to what their goal was. Lauren Southern has no idea she's not a conservative.
Of God,
None.
like God knows at the end of the day. Like
lots of people don't know what they're doing.
I know good and evil. Like I know that there's a desk or a table, whatever you want to call this, in front of me, a piece of wood. Like you can't know good and evil at that level. You know what I mean? I think that's right.
No, I mean some people can. They absolutely can. They have to be able.
I feel like you're doing this thing. You were just criticizing like me a second ago. For like,
I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm telling you there are people who can tell good and evil for sure.
Huh?
There are people who can tell good and evil for sure. Absolutely, there has to be.
By what means? Why would they do that?
I don't know. I don't even care.
I think
I'm not interested in means. I'm not interested in other people's means. It's not important.
So don't you think that knowledge of good and evil is what causes the fall, though? Like, I feel like this is a big thing we're disagreeing on.
Like, whether it causes the fall or not is irrelevant. I mean, if the knowledge of good and evil causes the fall, then we have the knowledge of good and evil. Okay.
No, that's not the point. I don't think it is. Hey, maybe I'm wrong.
That's what happens in the story.
Is that like people started to realize that you could know things and started putting heaven in the known box. It's not known. It's in the unknown box. It's in the ethereal. It's in the spiritual. It's something that has to be felt and danced with. And the only way you can have that is through the revelation of the Bible, which is, I don't know how the book came. It came from God. It came from Spirit. It came from revelation. You know what I mean? It came from God. And like I don't think you can, like, I think to think that you can know good and evil is a tremendous amount of hubris, and that's why people make mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, there are always things that, like, I think, like, yeah, this is good, even, you know, and I think probably with
people make mistakes despite knowing things.
Unless I'm sleeping, the more likely I mess those things up.
But John, people make mistakes despite knowing things all the time. People do things when they know better. Like these things are just not attached in that way. Well,
yeah.
Then the knowledge of good and evil isn't the problem.
It's really like it's almost like your conscience knows better. You know what I mean? Your conscience knows better. You are this thing up here, and then I don't know where you want to call it. If the subconscious is down there, I don't know if it's up there. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, so I think that you actually don't know. And you really have to be kind of go into that. You have to get into a receptive mind state to know. But that's receiving from something else.
All right, let me catch up on it. West Coast refugee. I'm a recovering medhead. That's good. It's the mixture of good and evil, perhaps. Yeah, maybe. Right. To know is to become intimately intertwined. No, I think that this is where Vervaeke's work is helpful. There's more than one type of knowing. Now, my model has two, right? The model that I use, the model that Manuel Post and a bunch of other people helped come up with, the knowledge engine model. We have two, but there's 4 ways of informing the world, which is actually way more important, right? So it's not one thing, right? There is propositional knowledge. I can tell you something. I can tell you how I feel. That's not becoming intimately intertwined, right? But you can know that to some extent. Right, the tree is the mixture of good and evil. Well, maybe, maybe that's debatable. But it's not important. What's important is your knowledge of something is not the be all end all, because you make mistakes and you do things in spite of what you know, irrespective of how you know them and what kind of knowledge it is. That's the problem. That's the bigger problem. Can't hear a word you're saying, John. Did you put yourself on mute somehow? John, are you muted? I can't hear you. Nope, not a word. Whoop. And then he's gone. He'll be back. Yeah, I don't a lot of people in the age of gnosis put all this stress on knowledge. I'm like, knowledge is great, but like it doesn't solve a problem. Even if your knowledge were perfect, and it's not. It doesn't solve a problem, because when we go to implement our knowledge, we screw up. Right? And then you could cut that any way you want. Imperfection, sin, the fall, whatever, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, knowing things doesn't solve a problem. And people don't like that, but also knowing things doesn't solve a problem. And so the fact of knowledge is not helping you out. All right. Now you're back. That's better. What you got for us, John?
Oh, okay. Sorry. There we go. No. What did I say? Oh, I remember the thing I was muted. I said there's a difference between knowing on a semantic level and knowing on a procedural level. I forget what was said that made me say that, but
no, the different types of knowledge. I mean, John Vervaeke has 4, right?
Can you explain those?
He's got propositional, procedural, participatory, and perspectival.
I feel like procedural. I mean, I would love to talk to him about this, but I feel like procedural and participatory. I don't see how those are different.
Oh, those are completely different.
Can you explain?
Sure.
Let's write a book.
So you can have a procedure for something and not participate in it. That's pretty easy, actually.
I don't think you have.
Yeah, you can dance by yourself.
That's interesting. So there's like, you could have a procedure to ride a bike, but you never participate in riding a bike.
No, you could dance by yourself, but you never participate in dancing.
But then it's like it's not fully dancing in a way, because I feel like to truly dance is to dance.
No. Now you're just changing. You're changing the definition on the other side now. That's
I think I have a tendency not to draw a lot of hard lines between things.
No, this is covered.
Procedural knowledge is knowing when to do thing.
Did you ever watch Star Trek Next Generation? They cover it in Star Trek Next Generation. They covered it like 62,000 times with Data. Right? They go, so Data, learns to play the violin, right? And they go, oh, your violin playing is too procedural. And he goes, well, I used a mixture of blah, blah, and blah to play that particular piece.
Okay, like, I'm saying procedural, not as in like nothing, saying like it's too mechanistic. And I would say that he probably hasn't. To say, I think to fully know, like, okay, to play the violin properly is also to know when to play it.
Okay, but that's not procedural. There's no procedural for when. That's not procedural. That's what I'm saying. There is a difference.
That seems strange to me.
Maybe, that's the difference. That's one of the differences that Vervaeke makes, and I think it's a good one. I think, yeah.
You could argue that, how
about autistic people, John?
Because it's all embedded within other things. So,
everything's embedded with other things. That's not.
Don't know how to dance. You know what I mean? You're supposed to dance in these situations and not these situations.
But those are different questions. That's not the knowledge of dancing. The knowledge of dancing
that all fits within the procedural context. I'm saying, I feel like.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is that you're flipping around the way he's using it.
Okay.
The way I use it, which is to say,
yeah.
Right. So if there's somebody who's autistic and they say hello, you can tell they're autistic, even though they're doing all the same things that you would do when you greet somebody. And the reason for that is because you can sense that they're being procedural and not participatory.
I don't think that's the definition of being procedural. Procedural is memory built up in the body versus memory built up in linguistic. I think
it can be. What I'm saying is it's discernibly different. Like you can tell the difference.
Like I said, I'm the type of guy during in math class. like we'd memorize a whole bunch of different formulas for a bunch of different things, and I realized that, oh wait, I can use this same one for everything. It takes a couple of extra steps, but it's just easier to remember this same one, and this is actually the principle that's all working off of. And so like I think my brain just likes to compress things easily, and so like for me it's just easier to just understand that like procedural like is all one type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I guess probably for his work it's useful to separate that, to say this is you have it for this sense, and then you have it in a participatory sense. But like, especially something like I mean like something like playing music or dancing, you know what I mean? Those things are all nested within the whole narrative of
you learn to participate as a musician through the procedure of practice. And while you're practicing, you are playing music, but at a certain point, it goes from procedural into participatory. Where you're participating with the instrument. You're not merely using it as a tool.
And by the way, I just want to say the reason why I would separate, I mean, I don't know if this is a logical, or maybe this isn't logical, but like, because I know that like a lot, thinking it's done with motor neurons, but like I know there's no correlation between thought and action so like, no, that's a wrong way to put it. Maybe see, that's actually hard now. See, I don't know when procedural ends.
That's right. That's part of the point. I mean, but you can discern the two, and that's my point, is that they're definitely different. And everybody kind of knows it in a way. They can kind of feel it. They can sense it.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that more. Huh, okay. So you said perspectival knowing.
I don't believe in that.
Huh?
I think John's wrong about that.
What is that? Dude.
For him, it's what it's like to be here now, which makes no sense. It's very Buddhist.
Okay. I mean, there's definitely. I mean, I almost would put that again in the procedural category in a way, because like I think there are times when it's okay to be up in head and you're abstract, but like I think that but when it's time when you're having conversation,
he's talking about the looking, not about the doing.
These are useful probably terms for what he's guessing.
No, he's talking about the looking, not the doing. That's the difference.
Okay, the looking.
Right, the experience.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, exactly. Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
I guess I consider as looking for.
No, it's not.
It's procedural.
It's not procedural because you're exploring. It's not a procedure.
Yeah.
I think your confusion is you can apply a procedure to anything after the fact.
I think in a way procedural is the only one that matters in a way, and maybe that's why I keep going to it. You know what I mean?
If you approach the word procedurally, it's dead. And you'll be nihilistic and
I don't think that's what procedural means. Procedural is not the same as mechanistic.
No, that's not what it. No, that's not what it means. That's what happens. If you do that, you're gonna make yourself nihilistic real quick.
Wait, procedural just means being able to apply like your knowledge in a physical way.
No,
right?
No, it actually doesn't.
It means that, okay, like someone that explains to you how a bike works and how to ride it up from the atoms all the way up versus someone who just gets on a bike, you know what I mean? Who actually knows how to ride the bike.
It's different from that. Jesse.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing,
Can you hear me?
sir? Yes.
Loading.
Hello. I'm all right. It's a rainy day at the other side of the Down Under. I thought I'd come on and give this old John fella a bit of a run for his money. These quips.
Please. Okay. Yeah. I love it. Finally. Okay.
Yeah. You have a tendency to gaslight, sir.
How?
You just did it then.
Tell me.
I was listening to the last 20 minutes of you talk with Mark, and every other sentence that you spoke was asking Mark to double down on something that he already said.
I'm asking questions. Can you give me a specific example?
Why?
Because I don't know what you're talking about.
I think what he's saying, John, is that you kept saying that's procedural over and over again. And I kept saying, no, that's not procedural. And you kept saying that's procedural. And I was like, no, that's not procedural. Because you would agree to the difference. So that's definitely different. But I feel like, and then you would reframe it and say, then that is procedural.
I feel like it's all procedural, but you have they're different aspects. They're subcategories of procedural is what I'm saying.
Right. And yeah, how?
What?
You have
How?
a procedure and it gets you to a result. If you change the
I know,
procedure,
but there's
you'll
a difference
change the
between
results.
semantically saying it and actually acting it.
That's just the law of variance. Like you're
I don't know what
going
you
to
mean by
get in any system, if you change the input, you'll get a different output.
Okay. Wait. Okay. So can you, like procedural? The way I think about procedural knowledge, and like I don't think it's the way I think about it. I thought this is just what it is procedural. I think of, maybe I'm confusing. Is there a difference between procedural knowledge and procedural memory? Are those two things different?
Probably.
You think
Probably.
so? Because like I think if you're gonna run a procedure, it's that you know how to do it. And
All memory is
a lot of
procedural,
knowledge
though.
is actually procedural before it's semantic. You know what I mean? Like I knew semantically, like, oh, I'm supposed to change out my tires before I go on a long drive. But like until I actually did that and built up that experience, it's like, okay, now I really know why. And yeah. And so I'll act that out next time. And so now I have the
What
proper
are you
procedural
trying to figure out, though?
Huh?
I'm not sure what your like. You have a question, and I don't think that question is actually resonant for you. Like you're asking all these other periphery things, right? You're trying to like walk around a circle and trying to find out what's in the center, and you haven't defined what that center, what the answer to your question might be. Because anytime you ask a question, you're trying to approximate, okay, I go here, I draw a circle, I draw a square, and then if once I go into that middle of the circle or square, I'm likely to find the treasure, or I'm likely to hit the bullseye, or I'm likely to. But you, in your reasoning, if you want to call it that, you're walking around the circle, getting different right angle triangles, trying to figure out, your locality. You don't have any sense of what your center is, the thing that you're aiming at.
I shouldn't have. I don't think. I think that if you
shouldn't
think
have
you know what your center is, you're
huge
probably
statement,
wrong.
John.
Huh?
I shouldn't have is a huge statement.
Yeah, I know, but that would be assuming that I know everything. I don't know everything. Like I'm trying
to
figure
it out it's not
by walking around it.
It's more knowing the general sense of what you're looking for. So the statement that you made, well, look, the statement that you made previously about the tires, you just talked about two different ways of knowing. You can just do the damn procedure every time and never know by not doing the procedure what the end result is, and that's fine. One is participatory and one is procedural. You can follow the procedure without ever understanding what the consequences are for not following the procedure. That is possible, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what mostly what we do in the world.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
So those are two different types of knowing. The type of knowing where you didn't change the tires before the long trip and then you ran into a problem is different from the type of knowing that you just always change the tire, because you never get the second type. And that's good in that instance. It's not always
wait. So, but I get what you're saying.
Put it in terms of a story, right?
Yes.
Okay, you leave home to slay the dragon, to find the treasure, and then you meet a woman, right? But in most stories, you're only going for 3 points of reference. I need to leave home, I need to defeat something, and I need to get a reward for my efforts. And then it's a question of, do I return home or does something else appear? Right? The smallest amount of detail gives you a reference point in every part of the story. Gives you a beginning, gives you a middle, gives you an end.
There's a difference between having that semantic understanding and actually going out and doing that. And so that's what I'm saying. I feel like I'm saying that I don't see how, and I'm calling that procedural. Right. I don't see how that's different from participating. You're participating in the
semantic understanding is propositional knowledge, right? In other words, I tell you there's a dragon. You've never seen a dragon, right? There's a procedure you can follow to go encounter the dragon, right? That's different, right? That leads you to the encounter with the dragon.
With their words. That's what I really feel like we're not.
But but this isn't even about words. I'm just saying there's a proposition that there's a dragon, whether you've ever met a dragon or not. That's one type of knowing. I've given you knowledge. I told you there's a dragon. Maybe I've even described it's a green dragon. It's this big. It shoots fire. Whatever. It doesn't matter, right? It's a tail this long. It makes no difference. That's one type of knowing. Then I say you need to go out of the village to the east for 3 miles, right? And then there's a large rock, and at that rock you turn left, and then
Those
there's
are all
a cave, and the
right?
dragon's
Those
there.
are all
That's a
semantic
procedure,
propositions.
right?
No,
But
these are
until
if
you
you're
meet-
explaining the story. These are all semantic propositions. Procedure is action.
No, procedure's not
See,
necessarily.
this is where we're getting confused here. I think of procedure as being action.
It's largely irrelevant whether or not procedure is action. They're all action.
Procedure is just information.
No, what?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
This is not correct. Okay, so procedural memory.
You have
like
a
I said, is difference
procedure.
between,
You
like
have Can I talk? So
Sure.
I have a procedure. I have information. I know how to go from A to B to C. That's a procedure, right? In
I
no
don't know what
part,
you're saying yet.
in no part in that information is the call to action at any particular part. It is just 1, 2, 3, or A, B, C. Whatever, pick whatever, whatever Street Fighter combo.
Procedural knowledge of how to sit in a chair
Until you
is
no,
this.
you don't have
It's not me
procedure
saying I
knowledge.
bend my knees and then creak and then move my waist.
That's not.
This is
none of
procedural
that is
knowledge.
knowledge.
Hmm?
No, that's not knowledge. That's the problem. That's actually not knowledge. I mean, this is one of my great critiques of John Vervaeke. He describes information and calls it knowledge. It's not knowledge.
I mean,
It's
I would
information.
agree with some of that critiques of John Vervaeke too, but like I don't think, like I wish that he would. Sometimes I wonder if he puts a lot of what he says into procedures enough. And I don't want to like rag on John Vervaeke because I think he gets a lot of criticism.
Why are you a materialist?
I'm not a materialist.
You just made a materialist claim. I
What do you-
wish that someone else would share their information differently so it would confirm to my axiom.
No. I'm not saying he wish he would share his information differently. I'm saying I wish that he would enact. I'm saying I wish he would sometimes act differently. I wish he was sometimes more courageous. That's all.
That's a completely different critique than the one that you just made.
No, because I'm saying procedural knowledge is action, and we're having a misunderstanding here.
How do you get the procedural knowledge before you do the action? Like, what
How do you get
informs the
procedural
action?
knowledge before you? You don't
What?
get procedural knowledge before the action. That's the point. You get the procedural knowledge during. Procedural knowledge doesn't come from reading or thinking.
Well,
or
I'm just
talking.
saying, flat, you
going on
just
the
need to
convention.
remove, you can either have procedures or you can have knowledge. And by trying to smash this together and get some sort of occultic emergent
I love John Vervaeke, by the way.
well, you can't critique the man and also love him.
Yes,
that-
I can.
that's-
No, of course you can.
No, you can't.
People
you
who
can't.
love me critique
No,
me all
you
the
can
time.
judge the man and still love him. You can't critique him.
Right.
Your morality's all twisted up.
How? Okay, what's the difference between a judgment and a critique? Would you say?
You judge someone in love. You
I do
judge
love-
someone
I
with
use the wrong word.
purpose. You
I use the
critique
wrong word.
is a flat plane. You're saying we're now equals. If you love someone, you always have
No,
a
I don't.
reverence.
Way smart and way better
You'll
than me.
always if you love someone, you always have a telos. You always have a reference. If
Yes.
you critique someone, you're trying to flatten them out and be equals.
I want him
You're
to be
trying to
more
have
like
equity
Christ.
between
That's
this
my
person.
I want him to be more like Christ. That's my reference, and that's a wish out of love.
Well, no worries
No,
there.
no.
That ain't never gonna happen. He's way too Gnostic for that.
Okay, I don't think it's too far of everyone. And I see him. He changes a lot. Like I'm curious to see where he goes in his life.
He's writing letters to Hermes.
He-
So I agree he's changed a
doesn't know-
lot, just not in a good direction.
What?
He's writing letters to Hermes. I agree he's changed a lot, just not in a good direction. Like,
We'll see where that leads. We'll see where that leads. If
that's
it is a
that's
demon,
as
he'll
Gnostic
find
as
it
a
out.
thing
And
can
sometimes
get.
the journey to hell is what leads you to heaven. I tell you what.
Well, that's probably true, and that's not up to us. I don't think it's gonna happen
No.
while we're around to see it. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. And I'm not, like I said.
Okay,
you know,
John, come back. How are your actions, words, and behaviors leading to John becoming a, let's say, disciple or a believer in the truth of Christ?
well, maybe he sees this and he can see that I actually do genuinely love him, and maybe it would. I don't know what he needs to do. I don't know the man. You know what I mean? But that's just what I see.
But you're
and I'm trying to
critiquing
help
him.
And I see some people having conversations.
No,
with him.
no.
Sometimes
Come
who
back.
don't
Come
really
back.
see or seem
Come
to
back.
trying to break him down.
Come back
instead of,
here.
like,
Come back here.
you know what I mean? And
Shorter
like I said,
sentences,
sometimes
John.
if you really need to change, like, and you actually do care about someone, the breaking down, like the fire of hell and the love of God are the same thing. If God reveals himself to us, we just burn up immediately because it's too much, because we're so imperfect. Like, yeah, that's what happens. But, like, I don't know. What? Is that crazy? I'm
No,
pretty sure
I
that's
don't
pretty
know
biblical.
what you just said. You said like 7 things that are all like non-existent from you in your actions. You just made statements, strung them all together. I don't actually know what you said. Like when you make
I'm
a
saying I said
paragraph,
the
right?
fire of
You're
hell
starting
is
with
the
something
love
and you're
of God.
ending with something. You say, okay, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. You start the paragraph and you end the paragraph. What you just did is you made a
I don't
whole
know
string of
what you're doing,
statements
man.
that didn't actually have any sense. So and then again, you've avoided the question
What's your
as well.
goal here?
I told you my goal when I came on.
Okay,
I
sorry.
was
don't
actually
wanna
very
jump back.
explicit.
I'm
I
getting
said
too meta.
I came on to give you feedback. I came
Okay.
on to discern why you are gaslighting.
So are you critiquing me or are you judging me?
Why are you asking a subversive question if the answer is obvious? I'm judging you.
So you love me? Okay. All right. Tell me.
Well, I have to. Because
You have to
I'm
love me. No, you don't.
Yeah, why would
Come
I
on,
say-
now,
why
don't
would I
love
come
me
on?
now.
He wouldn't come on if he didn't. Like that's already inherent in the action.
Okay. All right.
That's a nice part about pragmatism and actions. It's that you don't have to worry about it. Like the action speaks all the stuff that needs spoken without
Yeah.
word. That's the advantage.
Okay. Anyways, sorry. What were you saying?
He was exemplifying to you that you made a string of statements that don't attach to the stated goal that you had of improving John Vervaeke.
Saying that I want him to go on a courageous adventure. I don't think that's. I don't think anyone would.
I don't remember when you ever said that.
Yes, I said I think he could be more courageous in putting like a lot of. I don't want to get like I already said what he said, so I don't want to like reiterate it.
That's a different statement saying he
It's
could be
tough.
more courageous. But
He's
how does
stressed
that
a lot.
relate to you?
Huh?
How does that relate to you?
John Vervaeke.
John Vervaeke being more courageous, right? That's your stated goal.
I want people to have good lives. It's the same reason why I talk to so many atheists. Like I like.
Now, how does
I
that
don't
relate to
really-
John? Because you've switched to people now.
Huh?
You
John
keep
the person.
switching context.
I want to help people out. That's all. Not yeah.
Okay.
Like, I don't think
How about I take it this way? You don't know John. You're not going to be able to get in touch with John.
I met him one time.
Maybe don't worry about
We
John.
did next
There's
to each
plenty
other
of
in
other
the
people.
But I was kind of
Hold on.
crazy.
Don't worry about John Vervaeke. There's plenty of other people that you could help that you can actually reach. How's that? Maybe that would be better.
I go to church 3 times a week.
I don't know why you said that in response to what I said.
Because that's like my community time. I mean, of course, when I'm building houses, I always trying to like make like houses that like I would be proud to live in. I'd be happy to live in. You know what I mean? Not like weird scuffs if I can or anything like that. And so there's that way. But I'm saying like 3 times a week, I dedicate myself to the community and like talk to people and try and share what I think is a solid
great.
understanding to the degree.
That's all great. Then why engage with John Vervaeke stuff at all? That would be my next question.
I mean, I don't know why I engage in. I engage with things. Okay. My unconscious is up to all sorts of things. Normally,
okay. Well, that's
years later. I'm like, oh, that's why I was interested in that idea.
That might be something to get a handle on then, huh?
What do you mean? I'm
That
following
your unconscious dragged you into all kinds of things you have no control over?
No, I do have some control over it, but like,
You don't have any
how
control
does
over
it-
John Vervaeke.
no, I'm not trying to control John Vervaeke.
You just said you had a goal for him to be more courageous.
Yeah, I'm not trying to control him. I'm trying to encourage him.
You don't have access to encourage him either. Like, I don't understand.
I don't think it's impossible that he would see this.
It's not impossible, but it's unlikely, and I don't think you're sending a clear enough message to him for him to take action on it anyway.
Okay.
That's my concern, is that maybe you think you're sending out clear signals that are useful to other people, and maybe that's not what's happening.
Has he gone frozen?
He's frozen. Yeah. It's very strange.
It's a gift. Let's move on.
It's yeah, that's true. How are you doing, Jesse?
I'm okay. I'm okay. As you can see, I've got limited time at the moment with all the different weights on me. I think that's just a part of life. You've got to assess where your boundaries and limitations are. I'm sure that you've brought that up in some way. And I was actually trying
Not this
to.
stream.
Yeah.
Did you hear my monologue?
I will go back and listen to your monologue. I will.
Oh, see, I was mentioning you. I'm like, I hope Jesse comes on and tells me what movies and books and stuff I'm missing in media from 2014 that's so significant.
Oh gosh.
2014, because that was the monologue, was basically me going through all the things in 2014 and then hitting Lauren Southern, who had an interesting interaction in Australia, actually, that I found fascinating. That was the most fascinating story I've ever heard.
Is that when she met the American Fed guy? Was it here or there? Anyway,
She met him there, yeah.
So when's the GFC? It's 2008, 2009.
I don't know.
So like the 2014 era is the that's
Lauren
the
Southern's
evergreen.
just after that, right? But
Yeah.
she's born from that split. 2014 is actually the split in the media, when the mainstream media starts losing like crazy and the online media just blows up, and she comes right into that.
Can you quickly search when Facebook bought Instagram? I wonder if that's around the same time. It might be a bit after, a bit before, but I feel like there was 2014 is this kind of tentpole in 2012. Okay, well, so that would also make sense, because
A lot of things happened in 2012 that led to 2014.
Yeah, there's always an echo about a year and a half to 2 years to implement something.
Right,
it takes about that much time to get a project up and running, or to redirect, reorientate.
Big tech integration.
Yeah. Which is to point to, there are always echoes in the past, like you talk with Adam, that lead up to significant events. And you can see that 2014 triggers things that we would start to see in 2016, 2017. And then, with the rise of Trump and whatever you call that. But
all of that, well, I went over Trump, but but the Ukraine war started in 2014 and was has been going for 10 straight years, and no one acknowledges that. And but the interesting thing is, because the Lauren Southern thing came late, it became Sargon Akkad did a video called Trad Wives, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like I watched it and I'm like, Carl, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even understand what you're doing in this video. Everything in your video is wrong. Like, I don't understand, dude. Like, usually you're spot on, and this time you're so far off. It's crazy. Like, and then I watched this video from a year ago that I think Adam, of course, posted it, because he's awesome. And I finished it like just before the stream even, right? But it's Lauren Southern a year ago talking about what happened. And she goes, well, I'm a conservative. And I'm looking at her like, you are not a freaking conservative, honey. I hate to break it to you, but there is nothing conservative about your life. And even the way she tells the story, not conservative. And then she says, well, I wanted to get into politics. And I'm like, you weren't in politics. What are you talking about, you crazy person? And she's talking about the cult-like aspect. She uses, that's the word she uses multiple times. And then it turns out that everybody in the quote, dissident conservative movement. And I'm like, you can't have a dissident conservative movement. What are you talking about? And then she said, she basically, like Milo and all those guys, they're all scumbags who are blackmailing one another. For real. So it was just them LARPing the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's all small money. It's all small. Like, I mean, it's big money to people, but it's small money compared to like mainstream media. Like it's not hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not even that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Conflation. That's the kind of seems to be the theme of 2014. Is when
LARPing
another
and
way
the
to
split.
Yeah, it's a
There's
sleight
a
of
big
hand.
split.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of LARPing. I mean, she's sitting there a year ago just telling the story about how she wanted to be in conservative politics. And I'm like, you weren't in a movement. You didn't move anything. What are you talking about? You're a lunatic. Delusional.
Yeah. Movements are always defined in hindsight, which is what you've just said there. Which is very true. Yeah.
Right. You can't, like, things move all the time. So that's not helpful. Like the fact that people get confused about this constantly. Like I had this on a live stream I did on Destiny there, right? Like these people are like, no, guys, people rally all the time. Things move all the time. You have to have a better definition because these things are constant. They don't change. Like there's always movements going on. There's always flags being rallied around. There's always people getting together. There's always this stuff happening. The question is whether or not it has an impact on the world and what that impact is, whether it's good or bad. That's where the brass tacks come from. Not the emergence. This is the emergence as good people, right? Like a thing emerged. It must be good. And it's like most of the things that emerge are not good. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. As we've pointed out, so there's a few things that are emerging or kind of coalescing from events that happened in the past that led up to a milestone or a signpost or an outlier being 2014. It's probably true to say that the polis, what's the right way to say, the instrumentation of politics becomes more apparent in 2014. Where everything
actually, I think it became completely hidden.
Well,
because of the LARPing.
It's one of the same. It's one of the same actually, because containment and shadowing. Right,
but in an unhealthy way. And I think that goes to Ixnan's thing. At some point, it's not even LARP. It's RP. No. RP is something you do in your basement with your friends, or in a basement with your friends. LARP is when you do it in public. Right? That's really the difference, ultimately. And they were LARPing. They were doing it in public. Like, had they played like conservative political dissident, whatever the hell that could possibly mean in whatever universe they're living in delusionally in their head, in the basement or in the basement of the gaming store or something, it wouldn't have mattered. But the thing that happened was the opposite of what they were trying to do occurred. And I think that Jesse nailed it, right? It's because the political, in a way, became, the force was exerted without you noticing. Because what you saw were these rebels who were fighting, these conservative rebels. None of them were conservative. Milo Yiannopoulos is not conservative. Never was. Never had a shred of conservatism anywhere near him. Conservatism to Milo Yiannopoulos would have been like holy water, would have burned him up, and he would have, for sure. Like, I don't even know why I'd have to say that. Like, look at the guy. Like, he's a clown. He's going for entertainment. He's going for attention. He turns out to be a narcissist, according to Lauren Southern. I have no reason not to believe that part of her story. Tommy Robinson, same deal. The guy's a cokehead who gets drunk a lot and has a lot of hookers. And good for him. Like there are days I'm like, oh, cocaine and hookers. I don't know. Sounds pretty good. So what I didn't work out the way I expected. And maybe cocaine and hookers would have made it better. But whatever. But those guys were never what they seemed. Lauren, I think, was. I think she's a crazy idealist, but she's not conservative. She got freaking used by that whole machine, and everybody made money off her. Everybody. And that's horrible. And I don't think she's processed that trauma yet at all. She keeps saying no, I did it for the idealism, and therefore it's okay that I get completely, taken for every dime and dollar that I made everybody else. I don't think that's good at all. That's not healthy for her.
Yeah, I think another probably a reference point here too is there's two things. There's the change in the type of media people are consuming. So we went from a sort of text, very limited, very one-directional media style to this verbal style where it is it's a call and response. It's you could say it's non-binary in another aspect too. It's very reactive, or there is no passiveness in a verbal conversation. It always is frenetic and very activating in some sense. Where you can read about the reference in my head was music journalism kind of changes from 2012 to 2014. And before you could read about the latest top 10 albums or whatever, and you could go, that's interesting information. But now we're in 2014, and it's I'm going to needle drop some songs, or I'm going to give you the direct link.
Right.
And now it's not just information; it's a call to action, or it's a lead in, whatever. And there's that confusion between,
But it's a flattened participation.
That too,
right?
Yes.
Right, and I talked about this sort of at the end of the monologue. It's like you get this flattened participation with somebody like Lauren Southern, who is, and at some point I got to go into this anyway, she's sexually signaling constantly.
Maybe it's a topic.
But everybody sits there and goes porn, and I'm like, no. Porn's the end result. Porn's the end result of something that already happened. And so you can't deal with the porn. That won't help. That won't do anything. And you can't get rid of it anyway. It's the internet. And if you want to go into it, oh no, I'm an expert at that. I was in the porn industry long before everybody else was. I knew all about that, especially with the internet, because I was on the internet before anybody else was. I was way early, right? Way early. There was free porn on the internet long before anybody knew anything about it. I was monetizing the crap out of that. That business totally failed, by the way. I could have been way bigger than Pornhub. They didn't know what they were doing. But the thing is, the market wasn't there. The material was there, but the market wasn't there. That's interesting. Why wasn't the market there? Because the market was created by something else, and it is that constant signaling. But when you're signaling on a screen, it's always tends towards entertainment. And so as you, quote, deregulate the news market in the US, what happens is it splits up into a billion pieces. And effectively, CNN can't compete with me. This cost me like $130. Right? I already had a laptop. I already had an internet connection. I just needed to buy a better webcam, a better microphone, and some lights. CNN's paying, $50,000 for a camera, and they need like 7 of them. And then they need studio space. I'm doing this in my house. They can't compete with me, not on price.
The other thing there too is I wonder whether to follow from what you're talking about, this change from 2012 to 2014, I wonder how much the way in which people are looking up to or being influenced by others changes, because I would suspect that Joe Rogan's peak rise is somewhere between 2012 and 2014. Now, what's interesting about that is that in the past we've had comedians as like central top hierarchy figures. Jon Stewart, what's the other idiot's name in New York with the glasses? Saturday Night Live, etc. There's a few others that were comedians in
Yeah.
spirit, but not in talent, you could say. Or, however, but Joe Rogan is I think it's too much of a limb. He is a comedian at heart. He plays that central figure. He has the persona in the mask, but he also is that as a person. And by a comedian, we can also recognize him as a person of change, because comedian is meant to change the dynamics within the court. They say the unpredictable thing. They say the thing that everyone fears to be said. So they're changing the room, or they're reading
but the gesture.
room.
Yeah, the problem with Rogan is the gesture becomes front and center and is no longer the gesture. Right. Yeah. So 2010, 2014, he wins an award. Right. He entered the top. Yeah, in 2010, 9 months after it began, he entered the top 100 podcasts on iTunes. And in February 2014, his podcast wins a Stitcher Award for Best Overall Show of 2013. And in 2017 and 2018, he was the second most downloaded podcast.
Which means he's the first, in theory, depending on how you, if you...
maybe it's the first really big one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you could say...
But that's part of the trend. That's part of the trend change from TED Talks, which are people spewing their garbage at you, to conversations, right? And then you got Peterson, who's a whole different animal, right? And I write about that in my petersonsphere.com article, right? You can read it there, right? And that's a big change. And it's just a change to the media landscape as such.
Yeah.
And that's why, like when Destiny was talking about the media landscape with Andrew Tate and stuff, I'm like, why do I have to choose the lesser of the two stupid people? But I do. And so I did. I had no choice. But also they're both wrong. They're both wrong in important ways. But, it is what it is.
Mm.
But yeah, I'll be interested in your feedback on the monologue at some point. I don't know what's going on there with him. I really have no idea. That was very strange.
Sorry. I know. I don't have a.
No, that's understandable. I don't. When someone offers you grace, you should accept. You shouldn't reject grace. That's not.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good.
There is a very permissive spirit that has taken advantage of social media, and we just saw a great example of what happened in 2014.
Right. Well, that's the narcissism. I mean, one of the lessons you get from the video I posted earlier, the Lauren Southern video, it is three freaking hours. It was a slog. But like, she talks about the narcissism that's in this conservative political rebel movement. She builds, like, she's the reason why this company called Rebel Media actually takes off. Like, she is. It's called Rebel Media, Jesse. Like, you can't make this up.
Oh gosh.
I'm part of the conservative political movement because a guy started from TV, left TV to start an online thing called Rebel Media. And that makes me part of a political conservative movement. And I'm just like, what? How delusional was she? She's still that delusional, apparently, too. Like, she's still casting herself as a conservative. I'm like, you are the least conservative person of all time. Like, I don't even know what to tell you. Like, it would be more conservative if you were hedonistic and repentant. But you're just like, go. She actually gets flown out to LA. Doesn't occur till she's like 20. or something, right? Doesn't occur to her that like free tickets and free lodging are not free. And she was reflecting on this. She's reflecting on this after the fact, which is good, I guess. But like, if you're in a conservative family, your parents wouldn't let you do that. Like, what the hell? Like, the men in your life should be protecting you from the other men. Like, I don't even understand. What do you think conservatism is? My God.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Well, and that was the mistake that Sargon made. He's like, trad wives, is there room on the right for women? And I'm like, what are you high? They're the ones having all the kids. There must be room for women. Like, I don't know. Is that like a difficult math equation in the UK? Like, do the English not understand how this works? Of all the people on the planet.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened to in again that 2012 to 2014 cycle. There was a frame switch in what we call or classify as conservative, and what I believe you've just said is that conservative, as a ethos, as a belief system, is about protecting what is divine and beautiful about women and trying to conserve that and keep that to keep that in its proper place, to give it a proper structure, and to actually create the cohesion within society where creatures that are most vulnerable to all elements of life can bring life to others, or can bring life to the community. How's that as a general matrix? And then of thought.
Well,
and then the switch there is between conservative is just about economics, or it's just about
your ideological position on an issue. Like conservatives don't have ideological positions on anything. Like, that's just not, conservatism is about conserving. So you wouldn't waste a young woman on work, on that kind of work. Like, you wouldn't waste her on that kind of work. Right? Like you know, maybe you let her earn her way into it, or have her kids first, or whatever, right? Or maybe you let her, do the impossible, because some people can do the impossible and have a career and kids, whatever. That's super rare. Jordan Peterson talks about this, super rare. It's not you. Like, you're not doing that. Like, maybe somebody can, but that somebody is never you. You're not the outlier that you see. Like, you're just not. But then what happens is you have rebel media. So you have this rebel group of people self-identifying as conservative, when any idiot looking at them knows they're not conservative, bringing themselves down into a space where conservatives don't play. Conservatives read their news. They always have. They're readers. They're not TV watchers. Well, because most of them are working the farm, and so they read monthlies. They're not daily engaging in news. They're busy.
Oh, yeah.
But people don't realize that. Like, they don't daily engage in news, and they have the Taleb model. I want last month's news. I don't want this month's news. It hasn't happened yet. Like, a month is just long enough that you know what happened.
Well, naturally, because they're sort of there's you could say there's a distinction between like the strategy to which they apply in life, and they're far more long term, because just that's the better rhythm to which to preserve and protect things.
Right.
If you're going through a fast life history strategy, you want danger because it's maximizing potential and opportunities. But you're doing so. You're going to be in a land of confusion, in some sense. You're going to be, and that's. But then that acceleration is, it's also something that we can see. Yeah.
But that's the shift of the Overton window. Right, because now you have these self-identified conservatives who aren't even remotely conservative come down into the space where conservatives aren't, and fight a battle using the same language and the same tools as their enemies, quite literally. Lauren Southern's out holding signs to antagonize the people who are effectively, I mean, the way she told it in that video, they were saying bad things about people she knew and cared about, and she was protecting them. I was like, ooh, motherly instinct, huh? She was mama bear. That's effectively what that's what she described. I was like, are you listening to what you're saying, honey? Because like, wow, it's a hell of an admission. She hasn't integrated any of it. You can tell she hasn't integrated any of what happened to her. And it's just like, wow. And then the whole time, she's not taking responsibility for the bad actions that she sees going on.
Hey, I need to go. I just looked at the time.
Okay. See you, sir. Good to see you.
Take care. Continue
Cheers.
good work. Bye.
Thank you. I shall try. What a raucous stream. Sorry I had to discipline John there, but wow, that was wild. It was good to see Jesse. I don't get enough time with Jesse anymore. But seems like he is busy, and that is better than being on my stream, as much as I don't like it. It's like better for Jesse is better. So look, this has been a wild trip. I hope that people see something about 2014 and that they tell others about this videos they can watch and kind of judge for themselves. Was there a big split 10 years ago that, most people missed? And how significant is this? Because if nothing else, it's a sign. But actually, I think there's some causal elements to it, to 2014 and all the things that happened. And look, I wasn't trying to cover them all, and I certainly didn't. And I missed a few key things that I wish I had put in there, of course, as is often the case. Maybe you have things, you can put them in the comments. This has been a wild ride. I think we learned a lot. I hope we learned a lot. A lot of things happened at a lot of fractal levels. So if you like Jonathan Peugeot and self-similar fractality, boy, there's a lot of that here. A lot of signals. There was a lot of interesting stuff that came up and that was exemplified, right? And I think probably the sort of the comment of the that I didn't highlight at the time, Sally Joe, if you are asking what the P's are, how can you be refuting them while asking about them? That is kind of the point. And people nowadays, post 2014, as the result of 2014 is part of my argument, are doing a lot of that, right? They're asking questions and being critical about the answers they're getting. So on the one hand, if you're asking a question, you're admitting your ignorance, which is great. That's good humility. If you are subsequently in the moment critiquing the answers you're getting, you are claiming that you're not ignorant, which means at one point you were lying, probably to yourself, by the way, but also to others. That is bad. That is what happened in 2014. Culture lied to itself about what was happening in the world. Lawrence Southern and Milo Yiannopoulos and all these other clowns were not conservatives at any point in their lives. They were not. They still are not. They might get there someday, maybe. On the other hand, you can look at Tim Pool in particular, who was a hardcore anarchist. And through success, through the participatory experience of success, has just become more and more and more conservative. I don't like right wing. That's nonsense talk. I don't like left wing. That's nonsense talk. But certainly conservatism. I don't like Carl Benjamin's alleged liberalism. That's impossible. The word liberal by itself, unconstrained, is meaningless. It can never convey meaning. That's the problem. Words require context. If you use a single word, there's no context by definition. Classical liberalism makes sense. That's why I think Peterson gloms onto it. I mentioned that somewhere. And that is the important takeaway, right? Things changed. A bunch of self-referencing happened. That was the year of LARPing. That's when the LARP started, if you want to put it in those terms. I don't particularly like those terms, but actually, There is a truth to it if you use it carefully enough. And that changed the world. And we're living in that skeptical cynicism. I have a video on that, on navigating patterns. Skeptical cynicism that is destroying everything. It's just wrecking everything because you're seeking to know things that maybe you can't know. But you also don't need to know. That came up in the procedural knowing. You follow the procedure, or you can follow the ritual without understanding anything about it, and miracles will happen. And that's good enough. You don't need to know why or how. You just don't need to. And most of the things you're doing now are strictly procedures that you're mimicking that you have no idea about. You did not learn in a book. You did not get educated on in any way that you would recognize. You did not get taught in the traditional sort of fashion in any way that you would recognize. And that's okay. Embrace it. Wonderful things can happen. Stare out your window, see what flies by, right? Had dragonflies today. Very beautiful. I was out in the yard. I wasn't out in the yard nearly enough. I am at some point going to do stream from what hopefully will be my new outdoor office. So probably not this stream because it gets dark. But look, I did a stream on this Clown Destiny, similar sort of situation. This is part of the milieu of the LARPing. Those guys are all LARPing, every single freaking one of them. Some of them more successfully than others, and some of them less than others. Destiny's full LARP, obviously. What a clown. Andrew Tate, I don't like what he's doing, but like everyone's forcing me to support him more. I keep trying to knock him down and failing. That's not helping your cause. Maybe it should tell you something when you spotlight something like Lauren Southern did, and then it grows because your movement fails. Maybe that should tell you something about the utility of your movement. Right? Maybe it should. And same with Tate. Trying to knock Tate down, and you're just giving him more attention, and he's growing in influence, not lessening in influence. I'm not happy about it, but also you did that. Stop doing that, please. If you don't understand the world, that's fine. I'll help you. Like, watch my channel. Tell people to watch my channel. I'll help them. I guarantee you, whether they realize it or not, it will start. And you sort of saw that with Porter today. I hope he jumps into Discord, the Mark of Wisdom Discord, and helps us out. We always need more help and more people to help. I just wish I was getting more done, but unfortunately I've been sick as a dog lately, on and off. So listen, everybody, it was great. I really like this stream for a lot of reasons. Also very frustrating and sort of annoying, but I thought it was good overall. Leave some comments, tell your friends, threaten your relatives, whatever it takes. Let's get the viewership up. I think this stuff is important. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and a great week. And I see no reason why I won't do this again next week. I do have some vacation coming up, but I also have some videos. Hopefully my editor will be done with them all very soon. Should be releasing next week. I got another Plato's video. I got a couple of other videos. I got an Intimacy Crisis Part 2 with Catherine coming up. So look for all of those, and have a wonderful time. Thank you very much. Enjoy.